Hare Krishna, everyone. So it's 12 o'clock now. We'll start with our discussion for today from Bhagavad Gita. We are reading from chapter number 1, and we're going to continue from the verses of chapter number 1 from 21. And as if time permits, we'll also cover second chapter up to verse number 10. To begin with, we'll offer prayers and then we'll start our discussion. ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरन्दस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनाशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टां स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वापदान्तिकम् वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरु श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरुन् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातां सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनासहितं श्रीकृष्णचैतन्यदेवम् श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगणा ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामी इति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। नमो महावदन्याय कृष्ण प्रेम पदायते कृष्णाय कृष्ण चैतन्य नामने गोत्से नमः। वंशकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धु जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्त राधा कान्त नमोस्तुते। तप्त काञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौ भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. So once again we welcome everyone for today's discussion. This is the second session on this Bhagavad Gita. So to begin with chapter 1, just to help us kind of get a high level understanding of this chapter, the way of acronym is a nice way of understanding the chapter. Last week we spoke about how these acronyms can really help us when we need to figure out something particular from Bhagavad Gita. So the acronym for this chapter can be given as DOUBT, D-O-U-B-T. And in our last discussion, we had discussed the first 20 verses of chapter 1. The first section, Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana, where there are 12 verses. In that, the main discussion was about the uncertainty, insecurity, and the fear experienced by Duryodhana. Now, this is something very interesting. Why would Duryodhana be afraid or fearful when he had such a huge army, far greater army than Pandavas? And then we had a discussion. The point was any amount of material security cannot guarantee success. Whereas in the second section or the second segment of this chapter, ominous results from text number 13 to text number 20, we saw how Sanjay began to describe the army of Pandavas. And while describing, he uses the word like Divya, while describing the chariot of Arjuna, the conch shell of Lord Shri Krishna, and Krishna himself. Sanjay used some very particular words like Madhava, Madhusudana, etc. like that. We had discussed the purpose of using different names for Lord Shri Krishna. And then there was a discussion about how the Pandavas blew their conch, or the conch shells, and the reaction of the sound produced from the conch shell of the Pandavas and the Krishna. We discussed last time, it was literally like a heartbreak for Kauravas. Those who were standing on their chariots, they collapsed on the ground. Those who were sitting on top of horses and elephant, they fainted. Such was the situation. And this particular section of 13th to 20th verse ended with a description in the 20th verse about the chariot of Arjuna. And there Sanjay says, Kapi Dhwajaha. Not only that, on Arjuna's chariot we have Krishna standing. Not only Arjuna is holding that celebrated Gandiva bow, not only the chariot of Arjuna itself is celebrated because it was given by, it was not of this world, it was given by the celestials. Most of the weapons of Arjuna for that reason. Most importantly, in the 20th verse, he talks about Kapi Dhwaja. Kapi Dhwaja, which indicates on the Dhwaja of the Arjuna's chariot, Hanumanji was also there. And there Sanjay calls Krishna as Madhava. Why? Wherever Madhava is a husband of Lakshmi, so if Lakshmi is present, there is a victory, there is opulence, there is success. So through this set of few verses, Sanjaya kind of gave an indication to Dhritarashtra. My dear old man, you're blind from your childhood, but be assured, your son Duryodhan he need not be physically blind, although he has eyes, but he's definitely spiritually blind. Why this kind of indication was there? Because Dhritarashtra had asked a question, Mamaka Pandavas Chaiva Kimakarotsa Sanjaya. What did my sons and the sons of Pandu do on the battlefield of Kurukshetra? So that was of course, these are some very quick recap. We had a larger discussion on this set of verses, but let's move ahead. Now we go to the third section this is not the third, this is the second section. We've already discussed that like this, and these are signs of victory which were there. So fine. Now we move forward to the next section, which is U for uncertainty. What is the key theme? The verses are from 21 to 27. Krishna is an intimate servant of his devotees, is the key themes happen to be here. So what happens in this section of verses? Here we'll see Arjuna would ask Krishna, my dear Lord, please drive my chariot in middle of the army. Please take my chariot in between of both the armies. And that's where Arjuna's predicament begins. He gets bewildered again. Now question arises, or we can make a point, if not a question. Think about it. Krishna is present on the chariot of Arjuna, yet Arjuna is bewildered. So something very important to note. Our physical proximity does not determine our freedom from illusion. Point is, are we listening? In the whole first chapter, where now Arjuna's perplexity would be described, you'll see until the end of this chapter, only Arjuna is speaking. Krishna did not speak. So despite Krishna's presence, despite Krishna's physical presence, Arjuna was bewildered. So similarly, we may be in the presence of our spiritual master or of our mentors, shiksha, gurus and whatnot. But the question is, am I listening? Are we listening to them, or we are functioning according to how we want to live our life? So here, now this was a point. Let's raise a question here. Why would Krishna, now what does Krishna do? Krishna does something very interesting and exciting. Can we just tell them a little quiet? Just do it slowly. Krishna does something very interesting. Arjuna asked, "My dear Lord, please take my chariot in the middle of the army." And what did Krishna do? He brought the chariot in the middle of the army, but he brought it right in front of Bhishma Pitama Dronacharya. And Bhishma Pitama was his great grandfather, Dronacharya was his teacher. Of course, Arjuna had a lot of affection and he became bewildered. So here I'm going to raise a question. Why would Krishna, it is said that not even a leaf in this world moves without the will of Krishna. Why would Krishna put Pandavas into difficulty again and again? Right? And that teaches us something very, very important. I'm just going to give you 4 reasons why would Krishna do like that. And then we'll begin with our discussion ahead. So first, why would Krishna do like this? Because Krishna wants to teach us the life will not be, through Pandavas, Krishna wants to teach us that life will not be bed of roses. What it means? Well, you take a case of Pandavas, every one of them made mistakes. There was no one who did not make a mistake. Take a case of Mother Kunti. When Arjuna won the hand of Draupadi, and when Pandavas brought Draupadi back to Mother Kunti said, "Okay, baat lo aapas mein," as if that was Radha Govindev's Mahaprasad. Distribute among 5 of them. Yudhishthira made a mistake. He lost himself in a dice game, and that's what Draupadi's argument. When Yudhishthira, although being a king, he had lost his kingship, he had lost himself, who's a slave. How can he put somebody else on a bet? But Yudhishthira made a mistake. Despite losing himself, then again he put Draupadi. Arjuna made a mistake. Bhimsen, there is a whole history of mistakes that he made when they were Vanvas. He got so many times chastised from the sages. Nakul said that for that reason, everyone. So the point is, life will not be bad of roses. The point I'm trying to say is, everyone was put into difficulty just to teach us this very important lesson. We are in dukhalayam ashashvatam. Life, sometimes we think when we become a devotee, healthy body, peaceful mind, sharp intellect, and happy soul, it ain't works like that. In the beginning, it is okay, but gradually we have to face the realities of life. And yes, Krishna himself brings certain difficulties in the lives of the devotees just to shake them up, wake them up from the slumber, and make them more alert to Krishna consciousness. So first point, life will not be bed of roses. Second point, do not expect perfection amongst devotees, although we all are worshipping the most perfect Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because we are worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead who is all perfect, oftentimes we develop this understanding that people around us should also act perfectly. It doesn't happen. I just give you some examples of how Pandavas made mistakes, Kunti Maharani, etc., etc. So look in the lives of Pandavas. So many mistakes they made, but yet they remained together. They never gave up on each other. So we should not have some whimsical or utopian idea that as a devotees, we cannot make mistakes. To err is human, and that is what Lord Shri Krishna manifested through the lives of Pandavas. That whatever it is, everyone. Just imagine Arjuna, when Abhimanyu was killed, without consulting anyone, he said, "I'll kill Jayadratha next day." I mean, that was a big thing. Arjuna, when Krishna got a chance to meet with Arjuna, how dare you take us such a vow? Did you ever thought about it? The whole war, the victory depends on you. And if you're not able to defeat Jayadratha tomorrow, you'll have to, burn yourself. You have to kill yourself. So Arjuna said, "Well, that's your problem." And Arjuna went and took a nice nap, and Krishna could not sleep. So when we become a devotee of Lord, we increase the workload of Krishna. And Arjuna like that. So anyways, that's another point. But don't expect perfection amongst devotees. Again, the Pandavas' lives were such, there were many mistakes. It was just to teach us we should not have an utopian idea. The devotees will not make a mistake. The third point, united in prosperity and adversity. Of course, Pandavas had a lot of ups and downs. At one point of time, when that whole, Lakshagraha event had happened, the burning of the house, they went into the forest, exiled in the forest, and they came back. Finally, they got the Khandava Press, which they turned into Indraprasth, and they had celebrated a huge Rajasuya Yajna, Yudhishthira Maharaj was declared as the king of the whole world. After that was a crisis. After that was a gambling match. And nobody could favor Yudhishthira Maharaj. Please understand, Yudhishthira Maharaj had to play the dice game twice, not once. Now, in the first dice game, Yudhishthira had lost everything, all his wealth, all his brothers. Draupadi was so severely insulted. How could the brothers still cooperate with Yudhishthira Maharaj to go for the second dice game when now brothers knew for sure Kauravas cannot be defeated? And it is the vow that Yudhishthira had taken without consultation with us. And because of his vow that I will always follow the instructions of my senior, we all gonna suffer. So there Bhima or Arjun could have said, well, we are a democratic country. It's 4 versus 1. We are 4th. So we now hold the party's flag and emblem. You're 1, so get lost from here because you took a vow without consultation and we'll have to suffer. But that didn't happen there. They stayed united. United in prosperity and united in adversity. And they all had to suffer just because the vow that Yudhishthira Maharaj had taken for 13 years in exile, of which Arjuna was not there for 5 years with them. So whatever happens, never give up the association of devotees. And the last, of course, many points, but just to, in this context, a little bit of some lessons from Mahabharata. Pandavas had plenty of difference of opinions. Just like when the war was won, Yudhishthira Maharaj, now after whole thing has ended, Yudhishthira Maharaj said, I'm not going to be the king. No, Bhim said, Arjun, Nakul said, Draupadi, Kunti, everyone is trying to convince him, no, you have to be a king. And Yudhishthira saying, I'm not going to be the king. And Bhimsen becomes so infuriated, so angry. He said, for what did we do? For whom did we fight? We went to forest because of you, because it was your vow. We knew we were going to lose it. We knew the terms and conditions. We will be exiled. We went, we followed you. For your sake, we fought this war and we come back. And now again, you're saying there were many, many instances of difference of opinions between the Pandavas. Yet they never gave up each other's association, right? Do you remember any situation where Kauravas had difference of opinion? Any situation where Kauravas were fighting with each other? Think about it. The brothers. Whereas when it comes to the case of Pandavas, there were so many instances. So why would, for example, I was making a point, I don't know, in the previous session with all of you, or maybe another forum, if today you have to speak about cooperative spirit, in one sense, Kauravas would be an ideal example. The 100 brothers never fought with each other, but the Pandavas had so much arguments and altercation, isn't it? But this is the will of the Lord. Create a situation like this so that we understand we are in Kali Yuga. Kale dosha nidhe rajan asti ek mahan gana kirtana. No, sorry, not that one. Prayena alpa ayushya sabhya kalavasmin yuge jana mandas mandamata bhagya upadrataha. And one of the last instructions of Srila Prabhupada to all of us was, whatever happens, your love for me will be shown by how you cooperate. So, through the examples of Pandavas, where amongst them also cooperation at times were difficult, yet they always stayed together. Yet they were always united. There were difference of opinion, they tolerated that. They were together despite adversity or in prosperity. So, something to reflect on. And now, let's come back to the subject matter of what we have at hand from Bhagavad Gita. Hare Krishna. So, I'm just trying to play with my slideshow here a little bit. And all right, so let's go back to text number 21 and 22. I don't have it on the slide, so we're going to read it out from the book and then we'll go back to slide deck. So, Arjuna Vacha, I hope all of you have a copy of Bhagavad Gita, so we can read it. Senayor ubhayo madhye ratham sthapyape me achyuta yavad etan niraksheham yodhu kamanavastitan kairmaya sahayodhavyam asmin rana samudyame. Now Arjuna begins to speak and we have the entry of the hero. And who is the hero? Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Shri Krishna. And how is his entry? That's very interesting. Arjuna says, Senayor Ubhayor Madhya, please take my Ratham Sthapya, please situate my Ratha between both the armies. May Achyuta. Very interesting. Arjuna uses the word Achyuta, and Prabhupada describes very beautifully. What is the meaning of word Achyuta? If you look at the purport in the third line, Prabhupada says, why Arjuna called Krishna as Achyuta? Achyuta means infallible. And Prabhupada writes in his purport in the third line, he never fails in his affection for his devotees. And thus he is addressed herein as infallible. So Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who have already shown Virat Roop 3 times. Fourth time he is going to show here. When was the first time Virat Roop Krishna showed? When Krishna was a baby Krishna and Mother Yashoda was feeding milk, breast milk to Krishna. At that point in time, Krishna yawned. When Krishna yawned, Mother Yashoda looked into the mouth of Krishna and she literally fainted because she saw the whole universe. And then second time, Krishna showed the whole universe within his mouth during that mud eating pastime. And the third time before the war, when Krishna had gone as a messenger to Kauravas and Duryodhana had planned, if Krishna does not side with us, then we'll arrest him. And on the second day, after Krishna had gone to the house of Vidura, and that evening when there was a discussion, and when Krishna said, give 5 villages to Pandavas, when Dhritarashtra didn't agree, Duryodhana didn't agree, and then Krishna warned, you're unnecessarily bringing, inauspiciousness, you'll bring the destruction of your dynasty. Duryodhana became very restless and he ordered his soldiers to capture Krishna. And that time Krishna showed his universal form. And when Krishna showed his universal form, there is a huge, Mahabharata describes, there was a huge wind, there was like everything was shaking. Now Dhritarashtra is blind, he cannot see. So he did not understand suddenly from where this thunderstorm entered the Sabha Mahal. So he asked, what happened? What happened? What happened? At that point in time, it is mentioned, Krishna gave vision to Dhritarashtra also to see the Virat Roop. So Dhritarashtra also saw that, and Dhritarashtra is so Dhritarashtra. Dhrita means, I gave you an example, right? Favicol ka jod is so Dhritarashtra, he's going to see second time through years now in the 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, yet he does not change his opinion about the whole thing. Anyways, Krishna is mentioned as Achyuta, and how the Krishna's entry is given here? Krishna has become a charioteer. So this whole purport is about the Bhakta Vassala nature of the Lord. The Lord, Prabhupada writes in the purport in the 5th line, why Krishna is called infallible? Because he did not hesitate to become a charioteer of Arjuna. Like this. The relationship between the Lord and his servitor is very sweet and transcendental. Bhagavad Gita talks about 3 secrets. Guhyam, Guyata and Guyatamam. Guhyam Gyan is given in 2nd chapter. That is, you're not the body but spirit soul. Guyata Gyan is given in 4th chapter, where in the initial verses, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of God. It is being established from 4.1 to 4.9. Guyatamam Gyan is given in 9th chapter. So, what is that Guyatamam Gyan? You're not body but spirit soul is already established. Krishna is the Supreme Personality got established in the 4th chapter. What does 9th chapter reveals? For which the very first verse of 9th chapter says, Guyatamam. And Prabhupada writes in the purport of 9th chapter, first verse, anyone from our online audience would like to make an attempt. What is that Guyatamam Jnana? You're not the body but spirit soul, you're a jiva. Krishna is the Supreme Personality Godhead. So what else is remaining? Yes, Mother Yagya. How do you unmute yourself? Yes, unmute. Go ahead.
That we can understand Lord only through bhakti, only through devotional service.
Okay. Good attempt. That's also part of 4th chapter actually. Tadvidi pranita upatena pariprashnena sevya. That's covered there. What is Guhyatamam? Anyone else? Mother Kamalika. Actually, I don't get to see all of you on the screen, so if you raise your virtual hand, that will be easy, okay? Yes, Mother.
Yes, Prabhuji. The most confidential knowledge Lord talks about, and that is how by rendering devotional service, we can reach God. Means bhakti. Regarding all that Ashtanga yoga system, bhakti yoga is the easiest way to reach God.
All right, great. You're very close by. Very close by. Okay. Anyone else would like to give an attempt? Bhagavad Karir Mataji have written something. Most confidential knowledge. Rati Manjari Mataji, yes, go ahead.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
You're very feeble. You have to speak up loud.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dhanvatana.
Yes.
Prabhuji, is it that Krishna is subservient to his devotee?
You're really hitting to the nail, but just missing it slightly. You just need to complete the
He's
statement.
very dear. I mean, the devotee is very dear to the Lord. So,
Okay.
serving the
Okay.
devotee.
So thank you. You're quite close. So let's go back to this same purport, and I'll read the line that Prabhupada writes, and I'll just add one more word. The relationship between the Lord and his servitor is very sweet and transcendental. And what is the next word? Confidential. That is guhyatamam. What does the 9th chapter talks about? Apiche suduracharo bhajate mam ananya bhag. Even if my devotee, apiche suduracharo, duracharo, if you look at the Sanskrit, durachar means sinful act. Sudurachar is like extreme degree even. If he does the most sinful abominable activity, yet if he is fixed in his devotion service, Shipram bhavati dharmatma. Very soon he becomes situated again in transcendental devotion service, so he again becomes saintly like that. So that's the most confidential. That's the point being described in text number 22. Bhakta Vatsala, that's the purport dedicated over here. Let's go to text number 23. Yosyamanam aveksheham ya etyatra samagataha dhritarashtrasya durbuddhir yuddhe priya chikrshava. Let me see those who have come here to fight, wishing to please the evil-minded son of Dhritarashtra. So that's what Arjuna wanted. And now we come to text number 24. Sanjavacha evam yukto rishikesho gudakshena bharataha senayorupayor madhye sthapitva ratuttamam. Sanjay describes that when Arjuna requested Krishna to drive his chariot in the middle of the army, Krishna did that. He brought the chariot and he brought it in the midst of both the armies. I'm not going to pay much attention to the names again. Prabhupada describes why different names are used, so you can pay attention when you read the purports. Text number 25. And this is, I would say, a turn of events. What is a turn of event? Bhishmadrona pramuktaha. Text number 25. Sarvesham cha mahishitam vacha partha pashyetan samvetan kurunti. Bhishma Drona pramuktaha. In front of Bhishma and Drona, Sarvesham cha mahishitam, the most powerful, the Lord said, Vacha Partha Pashyetan. Hey Parth, you wanted to see who have assembled. And what did Krishna says? Vacha Partha, Krishna spoke. Hey Parth, Samvetan Kurunati. Now I have brought you amongst the middle of both the armies. See who is standing on the side, Bhishma and Drona. And this is what caused the turn of events. Because when he saw, Arjuna became overwhelmed. Oh, my great-grandfather Bhishma Pitamaha. He always cared for us. He always protected us. It was Bhishma Pitamaha who requested Mother Kunti to return back to the kingdom after the death of Pandu and the sati being performed by Madri. It was Bhishma Pitamaha who protected Pandavas from Duryodhan. It was Bhishma Pitamaha who found out Dronacharya and arranged from the training of the Pandavas and of course Kauravas like that. Bhishma Pitamaha was always there by the side of Kunti and Pandavas. And now Arjuna, I have to fight with them? Think about it. If Krishna would have brought the chariot of Arjuna in front of Duryodhan, for example, I guess Bhagavad Gita would not have happened. Arjuna would have become more excited to fight. But yet Krishna chose to bring his chariot in front of Bhishma Pitamaha. And then Dronacharya. Now, Arjuna is a pure devotee of the Lord. We'll see that what Prabhupada writes in the Prabhupada in just a couple of minutes. And Krishna brought the chariot right in front of Bhishma and Drona. Drona, who taught everything to Arjuna. Arjuna was a favorite student of Dronacharya, and Dronacharya was a worshipable teacher or guru of Arjuna. And now Arjuna is so disturbed seeing that. And why did Krishna do so? Because Krishna wants to teach us something very, very important lesson. But before that, I missed out one point, just wanted to make that. From the 22nd, the 22nd, 21 and 22nd verse, where Bhakta Vatsala was being discussed. So I wanted to show you this thing. Hare Krishna, I have a slide deck, please. You don't need to show the screen. So this is a very beautiful verse, which comes in first canto. This is about the Bhakta Vatsala nature, which is Sukdev Goswami is telling Parikshit Maharaj. Sathaya Parshada Sevana Sakhya Dautya Virasananugamana Stavana Pranama Snigdeshu Pandushu Jagat Pranitam Cha Vishnu Bhaktim Karoti Napati Charanaravinde. Maharaj Parikshit heard that out of his causeless mercy, Lord Shri Krishna, who is universally obeyed, rendered all kinds of service to the malleable sons of Pandu by accepting posts ranging from chariot driver to president to messenger, friend, night watchman, etc. You all can't see the slide? You have, right? Yeah. According to the will of the Pandavas, obeying them like a servant, offering obeisances like one younger in years. When Krishna would meet Yudhishthira and Bhima, he would do that. When he heard this, Maharaj Parikshit, this is a description when Maharaj Parikshit was traveling all over the kingdom. And wherever he went, he heard the glories. That's what Sukdev Goswami is describing. When he heard this, Maharaj Parikshit became overwhelmed with devotion to the lotus feet of the Lord. And in the purport, Prabhupada makes a very beautiful point, which is again in context of here. Why Krishna agreed to become a charioteer of Arjuna? And in this verse, he accepted different positions like a messenger, president, doorkeeper, etc., etc. Why Krishna accepted that? That's the point here. And Prabhupada writes in the purport, because the sons of Pandavas were totally malleable to the will of the Lord. Therefore, Krishna was malleable to the will of Pandavas. This is the lesson from chapter number 4, verse number 11. Ye yathamam prapadyante tams tatheva bhajamiham. That's the whole thing. Prabhupada is because Pandava was willing to do anything what Krishna would ask them, so does Krishna reciprocate it. So therefore, our success in Krishna consciousness, our progress in our spiritual life does not necessarily depend on how much Shravanam, Kirtanam, how much seva we do. Not necessarily. In fact, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu mentions you can go on life after life chanting the holy names of the Lord. Nothing going to happen. There we had a milk drinking brahmachari. How austere was it? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was totally upset. Why was he allowed? There is only one principle that pleases Lord. And what is that? Vaishnav Seva. Quresh, if I am correct? Not Quresh. There was another disciple, our Kanchipurna only, right? He would speak with Varadaraj DT directly. So he would speak to Varadaraj DT directly, and the people would come and make a request, and Kanchipurna will speak to the DTs, and DTs will reply back to Kanchipurna, and he will communicate the message. So one day one man came and asked and said, "This is my request to the Lord. Can you please ask this question?" What was the question? The question was, "My dear Lord, will I get to come back to you in this lifetime?" So Kanchipurna asked that question. When he asked that question, he thought, well, I have never asked anything for myself. Let me ask a question to the Lord myself. What about me? Would I also get to go back to God in this life? What do you all think? Somebody is able to speak to Krishna. Well, we can speak to Krishna, but hardly Krishna speaks to somebody. That's a different thing. Many of us would be speaking to Krishna, but to whom? How many people Krishna speaks? So imagine if Krishna is speaking back to you. So how many of you say, Prabhu, back to God a ticket? Confirmed. Raise your hands. Krishna is speaking directly to you. Please raise your hands. How many of you think back to God a ticket is confirmed? Really? इतने लोग का हाथ नहीं उठा अभी तक. What do you need, Baba? What other further evidence you need? Krishna is speaking to you. So maybe you know the past and that's the reason you're not raising the hand. Okay. And what was the lesson out of it? Varda said, no, you cannot come. And Kanchipurna said, hey, why I can't come? Because you're serving me. The door to Vaikuntha is only open when you serve Vaishnavas. Kanchipurna said, Nitai ko Hari bol, main ja raha hu. The very day he left. He said, what is the point, my dear Lord? I'm serving you and you're saying I cannot come to Vaikuntha. So you are establishing the worship and the service of devotees is far greater. I'll go and serve the Vaishnava then. Therefore, 4th chapter 34 verse Tadvidhi Pranipatena is a very, very important verse. Our success depends on how we become malleable to the will of our Guru, Shiksha Guru, mentors and whatnot. How we are willing to bend down. To the degree we are willing to bend down, to the degree we get rid of our ego. Otherwise, there's no way. So that was a point that I just wanted to make from this particular, Bhakta Vatsala point. So moving ahead, Bhishma Drona Pramukta. So we discuss about it like that. So what is the point here that Krishna wants to drive, Krishna wants to teach us? Why did Krishna put Arjuna in this kind of a bewilderment situation? There's something very important. The chapter 1 is titled as Arjuna Vishad Yoga, and in English it is mentioned as Observing the Army, and there is another name, what is that? Okay, it's not here, but there is one more name which is given to this chapter in English, but nonetheless, Observing the Armies. Our all problems in life begins with seeing with eyes. The more we put our faith in our eyes, the more we get bewildered. Look what is happening with Arjuna. Bhishma Pitamaha represents family, and that is Arjuna's attachment. Dronacharya represents education, right? And that's another attachment. So like this, when Arjuna saw his family and his teacher standing in front of him, he became bewildered. To see through our vision, that is not our eyes, but perception. So when we say we see, how do you really see? We only see through a perception, yes or no? For example, His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj was making this point in one of the lectures. He was quoting another famous author where he said, you and I both read the Bible. You read white, I read black. What it means? It means we are reading the same book, but we are coming to different conclusions based on our perceptions. And therefore, on the same name of religion, we have fanatism and whatnot. So we don't see through our gross eyes, we truly see through our perceptions. Just like a religious fanatic sees a man of another religion to be as kafir. He has no right to live, etc., etc. And these perceptions are the main cause of our bewilderment. So Krishna wanted to teach us. As I said, chapter 1 is the most important chapter for sadhakas. Before we can understand the concept of body and soul, we need to understand what is the problem with us. And the problem is with our own perceptions. And that is why the chapter is titled as Observing the Armies. So the whole message of Bhagavad Gita fixes our perceptions, changes our perception. Therefore, through Bhagavad Gita, we understand. We don't see through the eyes. We see through the ears. Arjuna is seeing the same Bhishma Drona now. And after the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna is still seeing the same Bhishma and Drona. The war started, yes or no? What changed? His vision changed. Why? Because before he was seeing through his perceptions, now he's seeing through his ears. In other words, his perceptions have changed. So what does Bhagavad Gita do to us? The message of Bhagavad Gita, the wisdom of Bhagavad Gita, changes our perceptions. So in spiritual education, the very first thing is taught is eye is a way of illusion. Our eyes don't show us the soul. We understand the soul through hearing. That's the process of it. And that's the reason Lord Shri Krishna said, Arjuna, see. You wanted to see, now you see. And that is why this situation has been brought about here. Now, okay, this is fine. So this was text number 25, which we read, 25, right? 26. So what did Arjuna saw? Sanjay describes, text number 26. There, Arjuna could see within the midst of the armies of both the parties his fathers, grandfathers, teachers, maternal uncles, brothers, sons, grandsons, friends, and also his fathers in law and well wishers. Text number 27. When the son of Kunti Arjuna saw all these different grades of friends and relatives, he became overwhelmed with compassion and spoke. So now we come to the fourth section, bewilderment, from text number 28 to 30. Arjuna becomes bewildered because he's seeing based on his perceptions, bodily identification, and he is confused. Text number 28. Arjuna speaks. Arjuna vacha drashtve swajanam Krishna yusum samupasthitam Sidanti mama gatrani mukham cha parishusyati Drashtve swajanam Krishna. And that is a fault in Arjuna's vision. What is the fault? Swajanam. These are my relatives. What does Prabhupada translate as? Arjuna said, my dear Krishna, seeing my friends and relatives present before me in such a fighting spirit, I feel the limbs of my body quivering and my mouth drying up. As I said, we don't see with the eyes, we see through perceptions. And what was the perception? This is my great grandfather, this is my teacher. So he says, the very first line, Drishtvimam Swajanam Krishna. Swajana means these are my relatives, these are my kinsmen. And now an interesting purport. We can show the Veda base here and we can look at the purport. Very interesting. Anyone would like to read purport of text number 28? This is not 20, 28 is not there. And the devotee who has his hand up, Naveen Prabhu, go ahead, please read out the purport.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. So any
Please, there is going to be a huge contrast in this purport, what Prabhupada is making, and in the next purport. So many times people ask a question, is Prabhupada making a contradictory statement? Is Prabhupada countering himself? No, not at all. There is something, a great message hidden within it, why Prabhupada is making entirely two different comments in this purport and the next purport. So stay alert, otherwise you'll miss it out. Please read out.
Hare Krishna. Any man who has genuine devotion to the Lord has all the good qualities which are found in godly persons. Or in
Yeah,
the
Prabhu, there's a lot of disturbance coming. Sound is not clear. I don't know if it is at your end or maybe somebody else is unmuted. Oh, sorry, Naveen Prabhu.
Okay, Hare Krishna, let me just.
Yeah, the sound is not clear, Naveen Prabhu. We have people on YouTube also, so I'll ask somebody else. Mother Priya, let's try from you if your sound is okay.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Yeah, it's clear. Go ahead.
Any man who has genuine devotion to the Lord has all the good qualities which are found in godly persons or in the demigods. Whereas the non-devotee, however advanced he may be in material qualifications, by education and culture lacks in godly qualities. As such, Arjuna, just after seeing his kinsmen, friends, and relatives on the battlefield, was at once overwhelmed by compassion for them who had so decided to fight amongst themselves. As far as his soldiers were concerned, he was sympathetic from the beginning, but he felt compassion even for the soldiers of the opposite party, foreseeing their imminent death. And while he was so thinking, the limbs of his body began to quiver and his mouth became dry. He was more or less astonished to see their fighting spirit. Practically the whole community, all blood relatives of Arjuna, had come to fight with him. This overwhelmed a kind devotee like Arjuna. Although it is not mentioned here, still one can easily imagine that not only were Arjuna's bodily limbs quivering and his mouth drying up, but he was also crying out of compassion. Such symptoms.
Okay, Hare Krishna. This is the line you want to highlight for yourself if you have a pen. Please highlight this line. Go ahead, Mother, read. Hare Krishna. Okay, I'll read out. Such symptoms in Arjuna were not due to weakness, but to his soft-heartedness, a characteristic of a pure devotee of the Lord. And then Prabhupada quotes Prahlad Maharaj's version of Yasyasti Bhaktir Bhagavati Akinchana. All right. So Prabhupada says Arjuna is a pure devotee of the Lord, therefore, but natural, it was obvious for him. Oh, Mother Priya got muted herself. No problem, Mother. That's okay. Fine. So that's the point. You got it? You made it a note here. So that's what Prabhupada says. Okay, let's go to text number 29. Vepathuscha sharire me romahascha jayate gandivam shamshate hasta tvakchaiva paridhayate. My whole body is trembling, my hair is standing on end, my bow Gandhi was slipping from my hand, and my skin is burning. Now, you can imagine what a kind of pain, and it is all the game of the mind. Nobody has shot an arrow at Arjuna. His mind has got so disturbed that his bodily temperature have increased, that my skin is burning. Then Prabhupada writes, there are two kinds of traveling and so forth. But now, please go back to the purport. If you can see the last 3-4 lines. This is evident from other symptoms also. Okay, Mother Anjana, I saw your hand up. If you can unmute yourself, you can read it out. Go ahead.
There are two kinds of trembling.
No, the highlighted portion, Mother.
Okay.
This is evident.
This is evident from other symptoms also. He became so impatient that his famous bow, Gandiva, was slipping from his hands, and because his heart was burning within him, he was feeling a burning sensation of the skin. All these are due to a material conception of life.
Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Please mark it, and now we'll have our Bhakti Shastri participants give a purport to it. Looks like Prabhupada is contradicting. So who would like to clarify what is happening here? So I see some of your hands are up. So first of all, you're going to lower down your hands and then raise your hands who has an answer. Okay, so we'll go with that. Okay, Rishikesh Pankaju, let's hear from you. What's going on here? Prabhupada called in the previous purport, he's a pure devotee of the Lord. And the next purport is all because of bodily consciousness. Why? Yes, Rishikesh Pankaju. Haribol, can't hear you.
I had raised my hand for reading.
Yeah, that's the reason I said load out your heads quickly before I call you. Okay. Mother Chintamani Sakhi Mataji, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna. Am I audible?
Yes, Mother.
The thing is that in the earlier verse, he is showing his compassion for his people as a pure devotee. He has forgotten all the revenge factor and all. So he is a pure devotee. And here, all of a sudden, he is showing material consciousness, which we also often show. When we visit the temple and all, we are in a very ecstatic state and all. But then something all of a sudden happens. We are again back to material consciousness, whether it may be due to prasadam or any other activities. So for us also in our lives, we find that association and environment is very important. In that particular environment, we have a particular type of mood. And the moment we come out of that, we go back to material consciousness.
Correct. This is the line of thought. But what action of Arjuna for which Prabhupada is calling his material conception?
Because that his Gandiva was slipping.
Yes.
Those symptoms are in a pure devotee also. Those are the ecstatic simple symptoms.
Okay.
There is no fear in that. Here there is fear.
Okay. Mother Yashoda was also at times was very fearful for the well-being of Krishna. So you're close to the main point. Thank you, Mother. Thank you, Mother. You're correct. So what happened here is, in the previous verse, Arjuna is speaking. In the next verse, Arjuna is giving an indication, I will not perform my duty. You got the point? If Arjuna would not have given an indication of not performing my duty, his Gandiva bow is sleeping. then Prabhupada would not have called it because of material conception. For example, to help you understand this, on the 12th day, if I am correct, Abhimanyu was killed, right? Now, Arjuna cried. And one person asked Srila Prabhupada, Arjuna had heard whole Bhagavad Gita. When his son died, why did he cry? Now, Prabhupada did not say because that was bodily conception of life. Do you all agree now? What did Prabhupada said? Are, devotees means emotions. So now you see Arjuna is crying here also. But why Prabhupada is calling a material conception of life? This is the point with which I started Bhagavad Gita. And I said the whole message of Bhagavad Gita, now Abhimanyu died, Arjuna cried. But next day he fought. He performed his duty. And that is the whole point here. So in spiritual consciousness, the person would never give up his service. In material consciousness, I quit, and I quit. That is what goes on. Because Arjuna this is just the beginning of a statement which is about to make that I'm not going to fight. Therefore, Prabhupada has said this is a material conception of life. And as Mother very nicely described, we all have this experience of ups and downs. We go to, let's say, Mayapur temple. I remember I've seen it quite often whenever I take a yatra. Very first Mangal Aarti I see, generally mothers have their eyes filled with tears. Oh, Radha Madhav, oh, Panch Tattva, Hari Bol, no doubt about it. And then they come back, 8 o'clock, this is time for Prasadam. Oh, Prasadam is so far away. Oh, bus is so distance away. This and that, whole transcendence and ecstatic mood goes away. And they come back to that consciousness. So these two verses is nothing but a journey of our life. It indicates how we go through mood swings, as Mother was making a point. And here I just want to make a particular point. What does this 18 days of war? This is my understanding, how I look at 18 days of war. 18 days of war, also if you would study about this 18 days of war, there were days when Arjunas and Pandavas were victorious, the days when Kauravas were victorious, which means the Pandavas were like on the 12th day when Abhimanyu died. So this 18 days of war where the onset of this Bhagavad Gita message is going on, the message of Bhagavad Gita is not going to change the circumstances, because the Bhagavad Gita was spoken on the onset of battlefield. The ups and downs of the Pandavas' life remained. But what did not change? Arjuna never ever said again, I quit. Is that making sense? So I see the 18 days of war as our life in this world. In certain days or certain years in our life, we are successful, and other times we are going through a tough time in our life. We may have a relationship crisis, career crisis, health crisis, whatnot, and sometimes things are just working fantastically. But the point is, we do not give up our service to the Lord, either of the situation. Therefore, in the second chapter, only Krishna will say, Sukhe dukhe samay kritva labha labhahu jaya jayam. Always remain consistent. So that's the only thing. So again, just to make this point, highlight this point again, Bhagavad Gita was spoken on the onset of the war. And in the war, Pandavas had to go a lot of ups and downs, but they never gave up their duty. And that is what is expected of devotees. Never give up. Continue on with your life. And this 18 days of war is nothing but our life in this world today. All right, let's move forward. So this was 28-29. I hope this difference is clear. Text number 30. Let me go back to slide deck. What is there on the slide for a second? So bewilderment. What causes bewilderment in this section 28 to 30 discussion is because of aham mameti. As in text number 28, he said, Swa Janama, my kinsmen, because of bodily identification like that. Text number 30, we'll read next number 30, then we'll take a look at it. Na cha shaknomi avasthatum brahmati vacha me manah nibitani cha pashyami vipritani keshava. I am now unable to stand here any longer. I am forgetting myself and my mind is reeling. I see only causes of misfortune, O Krishna, killer of Keshi demon. And Prabhupada writes very beautiful point in the purport. Third line, Prabhupada writes, excessive attachment for material things puts a man in such a bewildering condition of existence. If you want, you can take 30 seconds pause and think how we have become troubled because of our excessive attachment. And Prabhupada writes, this is 11th canto, Bhayam dvitya binivisheshita syat. Such fearfulness and loss of mental equilibrium takes place in persons who are too affected by material conditions. Maybe I can make this example here, that's okay. Generally, I should give this example in our youth, but maybe I can give this example here. This is my first year. I was studying at Ohio State University, and I had to take one undergrad course. So I was attending some classes with undergrads. This is related to computer security. So I had befriended one American boy. He was well built, 6 feet inch. Whenever I saw him, I was reminded of Bhimsen. Huge muscles and everything, well bulky and everything. So it was an afternoon time when we had a class. I went and sat, and this guy came and sat next to me. It started slowly. Then the loud sound increased, and I was like, "Kya hua isko?" What happened to him? Fortunately, good for me, that was a boy. If this was a girl, I would have run away. You could have been a seed. So he began to cry, make a sound. He had tears in his eyes. He put his hand on my lap. He was making my pant wet, and he was really heavy and bulky. And I was like, good thing is people in America are so impersonal. Nobody gives a damn about you. Nobody cares what's going on. And this guy was crying. And, after a while, he kind of vented out his emotion. Class ended, everything. Then I met him. I said, "What happened?" "Oh, my life has no purpose." "Meka, but what happened? Why your life has no purpose?" And he said, now this is an American boy, not an Indian boy. American boy. "Last evening, my girlfriend left me." If I have to describe American civilization, I'll quote Bhagavad Gita 2nd chapter, verse number 22. Just like Krishna says, as you throw your clothes, they change their life partners. It's just like a change of clothes. Every week they change their partners, girlfriend or boyfriend. This guy was so crying, and I couldn't. Can you imagine a well-built, heavy, bulky man crying? Why? The point I was trying to make here, this is there. Fearfulness and loss of mental equilibrium takes place in persons who are too attached or too affected by material condition. And what was the material condition for Arjuna here? That was aham mameti. These are my family members, these are my kinsmen. Prabhupada ahead in the purpose says, everyone, very beautiful point. Somebody would like to read the last few lines of the purport. It begins with, everyone is interested in himself. Sunny Prabhu, your hand is up. Go ahead, read out.
Everyone is interested in himself and his own welfare. No one is interested in the Supreme Self. Arjuna is showing ignorance of his real self-interest by Krishna's will. One's real self-interest lies in Vishnu or Krishna. The conditioned soul forgets this and therefore suffers material pains. Arjuna, though that his victory in the battle would only be a cause of lamentation for him.
Yes, thank you. Going back to the slide deck, let's take a look what we have up there. Now we're going to discuss from text number 31. These are some lessons. When one lacks understanding of his spiritual identity, relationship with the God, and the critical purpose behind the world, वह निस्संदेह रूप से जीवन की चुनौतियों से परेशान और निराश हो जाता है. माफ करिएगा, I just copied from the Hindi slide. I didn't have a time to translate it back, so I just copied from my Hindi slide deck and put it here. So what it means is, certainly such a person, when faced with challenges, he will find it overwhelming and he'll become discouraged. And then now we come to the last section of this chapter, where T stands for turning point. What is the turning point? 31 to 42 verse, where now Arjuna will begin to give reasons why I am not going to fight. First reason is compassion, which is already given in text number 27 and 28. Swajanma, like that he spoke about it, we have already seen. So we shouldn't fight because I would be killing my dear and beloved people, feeling of compassion of friends and relatives, and Lord will refute later on. Fine. And now we'll read ahead from text number 30 to 35. Arjuna speaks about, with whom will I enjoy? If I win, I lose, and if I lose, I lose. Why? Because if I win, I lose, because I would not have any friends and family members to enjoy with. And if I lose, I lose. Because I lose. I don't have a body to enjoy anymore. Blind conception of life, that is not knowing how to achieve even material happiness. And Krishna will refute later on in the Karma Kanda section, the second chapter. But let's go back to the verses here. Text number 31 onwards. I do not see how any good can come from killing my own kinsman in this battle. Nor can I see, my dear Krishna, desire any subsequent victory, kingdom, or happiness. So that's the point. Very beautiful point Prabhupada writes in the purport. So Arjuna is saying, I don't see any benefit. I don't see any use of the war. And Prabhupada says, in the purport he writes, very beautiful line in the middle of the purport. Arjuna thinks that by killing his kinsmen, there would be no happiness in this life. And therefore he is not willing to fight. He is making an argument just like a person who does not feel hungry would say, why should I cook? He got the point, very beautiful point Prabhupada says. Because I cannot enjoy anyways. So Arjuna is saying, well, if I win the war, I cannot enjoy. If I lose, I cannot enjoy. So why should I fight? So Prabhupada is saying, oh, it's just like, somebody who's not hungry and you're supposed to cook. The person says, why should I cook? Because I'm not hungry. So this is selfishness. Is it making sense? Imagine a mother who has to cook and she says to the child, why should I cook? I'm not hungry because I cook for myself. That is selfishness. This is the point which is being described here. Text number 30 to 35. He says, what happiness will I get? Kimno Rajena Govinda. You are the one who gives pleasure to the senses. Madhusudana. You kill the demon Madhu. Janardhana. Janardhana means you are the maintainer of all living entities. So translation of 30 to 35 verse. Anyone would like to read? Mother Rupali. Please read out the translation.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. O Govinda, of what avail to us are a kingdom, happiness, or even life itself, when all those for whom we may desire them are now arrayed on this battlefield? O Madhusudana, when teachers, fathers, sons, grandfathers, maternal uncles, fathers-in-law, grandsons, brothers-in-law, and other relatives are ready to give up their lives and properties and are standing before me, why should I wish to kill them, even though they might otherwise kill me? O maintainer of all living entities, I am not prepared to fight with them, even in exchange for the three worlds, let alone this earth. What pleasure we will derive from killing the sons of Dhritarashtra.
Hare Krishna. So I see this is almost close to 1:05. We can take our 7-minute break and I'll give you the explanation of this purport after the break. All right. So we'll pause here for 7 minutes and it's around 1:05 in my watch. We'll come back at 1:12 after 7 minutes break. And then we'll take the discussion ahead. Hare Krishna. Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. And
Hare Krishna. Prabhu, I have an announcement about attendance. Can I do it now?
Yeah. Please go ahead.
Yeah. So
my break starts, okay?
Yeah.
I'll come back nonetheless at 1:12.
Yeah, Sarakshi Srivastava Mataji, you've been added to the attendance link. All those who have joined, this morning, Sunny, Kanna Prabhu, you could please mark your attendance now. Your names have been added in the attendance list. Kamal Nath Prabhu, Sunny Tanna Prabhu, Sarakshi Mataji, yeah, Sarakshi Srivastava Mataji, Kamal Nath Prabhu, Sunny Tanna Prabhu, Aradhya Mataji, your name is Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna,
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Dandat Pranam. So I can see Shamla Gaurangi Mataji, Giridhari Gopinath Prabhu all asking how to mark the attendance, right? And Ignal Mataji is also asking. So please refer to the WhatsApp group. I have shared the attendance link there. You have to click on that. You will find your name in the drop-down list. Kindly click on your name and then select on submit, please. Yeah, those who have completed the registration until the time the class started, including Sunny Tanna Prabhu and Saraksha Mataji, all of them, their names have been included. So kindly mark the attendance. Yeah, Hare Krishna. Thank you. We cannot manually mark the attendance, so please don't send me WhatsApp message. Yeah. Thank you, Sunny Prabhu. So I request everyone to mark your attendance. The attendance link is open now, and it will close when Madan Sundar Prabhu starts his class. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So, one condition of this online class is to have your cameras on. As we said last time, there are multiple Paramatmas sitting at different parts of the world, and they take snapshots in between. And the moment they find your camera off, then we may be not manually able to mark you present, but our administrators are very smart. They make sure to manually mark you absent. So please do have your cameras on, all right? Okay, just going through with it. Hare Krishna. So, Haribo. Okay. So we were reading the 35th verse, and there's something very nice Prabhupada writes in the purport. If devotees who would like to read can keep their hands up so I can ask them. So in the middle of the purport, Prabhupada writes, Arjuna's deep affection for community and family members is exhibited here partly due to his natural compassion for them. So, okay, Madharanjana, go ahead. I would request that everyone can once in a while read it out, so that will help you to remain in yoga trance during the class. Yes, Mother, go ahead.
Arjuna's deep affection for community and family members is exhibited here partly due to his natural compassion for them. He is therefore not prepared to fight. Everyone wants to show his opulence to friends and relatives, but Arjuna fears that all his relatives and friends will be killed on the battlefield, and he will be unable to share his opulence after victory. This is a typical calculation of material life. The transcendental life, however, is different, since the devotee wants to satisfy the desires of the Lord.
Continue.
He can, Lord willing, accept all kinds of opulence for the service of the Lord. And if the Lord is not willing, he should not accept a farthing.
Hare Krishna.
He does not want to kill his relatives. And
that's okay, Mother. That much only. So Prabhupada makes a beautiful comparison. What is a material conception of life and what is a spiritual life? In material conception of life, person always want to show off, is more worried. I mean, this kind of a skin disease is not that easy to give up. Just like even in our spiritual culture, often we pay much attention to the success, the result, like how many people came for program, etc., etc. And that is considered to be a progress for a particular devotee. But that's not the fact. It all depends on for whom are you serving. The spiritual conception of life is it is to satisfy the desires of the Lord. And a perfect example, of course, is difficult to practice, but the perfect example is Srila Prabhupada. When there was a big program was organized for Srila Prabhupada in auditorium, and devotees tried their best, but when Prabhupada went there was nobody there. It was a capacity of 2,000 people. Nobody was there. Yet Srila Prabhupada gave a class. And then devotees were feeling so sad, I would say disappointed that they could not serve Prabhupada, properly, nicely. They couldn't invite guests, whatever reason happened, whatever was the PR failure that time. And the devotee asked, Prabhupada, there was nobody, yet you spoke, and you don't look discouraged at all. Of course, this is Shuddha Sattva Guna, okay? We cannot imitate, But just to give an example of what it looks like, Prabhupada said, well, you all were there, and didn't you see so many demigods were there? And most important point that Prabhupada made at that point of time, that it does not matter who is there or not there. We should still preach. There's so many other living entities which is not seen by our eyes. They will get purified. So point is, the whole idea of Bhagavad Gita is to, first idea of the concept of Bhagavad Gita, become duty bound. Duty bound for whom? Not for your family, not for yourself. Become duty bound towards Krishna. That's the first principle. Second principle is give up result orientation. We are too much caught up into result consciousness. Before we do anything, we pick anything, we are always thinking about what will I get? How would I be able to show my success to others? And see what Prabhupada says, everyone wants to show his opulence to friends, relatives, but Arjuna fears that all his relatives, friends will be killed. This is a typical example of material calculation. And we very nicely polish it. For the pleasure of Guru, for the pleasure of this Vaishnava and that Vaishnava. If it is for the pleasure of Vaishnavas, we are supposed to serve according to what Vaishnava says. You cannot do things at your side, do the way you want to do it, and then you say it is pleasure for Guru and Gauranga, for Srila Prabhupada and Acharyas. When you're not asked to do, yet you do it. When you're told not to do it, yet you do it. This is no spiritual practice. This is purely a material calculation of life. This is how it functions. Because there is certain our agenda that we want to fulfill. We're getting it. And it's a subtle point, but Prabhupada, of course, this is not easy to practice. But that's the reason, on the contrary, I quoted the example of Srila Prabhupada, what it means to be. So this is something which we need to move on to. Text number 36. Now let's take a look at the slide, what's going on. So this is 30 to 35 is about your, what do we call it? Enjoyment. Second reason. Let's take a look at the third reason. And the third reason is fear of sins. Text number 36 to 38. Royal enjoyment not worth the karma of a killing. And Lord will refute it in 33rd to 37th verse of second chapter. All right. Let's go back to text number 36 from Bhagavad Gita. Text number 36. Okay, I will not read the verses. It will take a lot of time. Let's take a look at translation. Sin will overcome us if we slay such aggressors. Therefore, it is not proper for us to kill the sons of Dhritarashtra and our friends. What should we gain? O Krishna, husband of the goddess of fortune, and how could we be happy by killing our own kinsmen? Very interesting purport. Arjuna is saying, how can I be happy if I kill my own kinsmen? And Prabhupada describes his kinsmen. What kind of kinsmen were of Arjuna who he doesn't want to kill? Prabhupada opens the purport. Very first line. According to Vedic injunction, there are 6 kinds of aggressors. Poison giver. Did Duryodhana give poison to Bhima? Yes or no? One who sets fire to the house. Did whole Kauravas attempted to kill Pandavas and Kunti and Lakshagraha? Third, one who attacks with deadly weapons. The war at the end of the incognito period. 5 Pandavas had to fight with the whole armies of Kauravas. At one side, Arjuna was fighting alone. Because Bhima, Yudhishthira, they were on the other side. Because there were two war fronts that open. Fourth, one who plunders riches, they by cheating usurped their Indraprasth. And fifth, there are 6 reasons. Fifth is one who occupies another land, they took their Indraprasth, they didn't only stole their riches. 6, one who kidnaps a wife, they insulted Draupadi. Prabhupada says these are the kinsmen. And Arjuna is saying, killing them, I would incur sin. So Prabhupada is making point, how can you incur a sin for which it has already made a point? If a person does any of this aggression, there is a fixed punishment, capital punishment, that is death sentence, which means Arjuna is bewildered. Now, why Arjuna is addressing Krishna as Madhava? Prabhupada says a very significant point. It is at the end of the purport. Arjuna wanted to point out to Krishna that as the husband of the goddess of fortune, he should not induce Arjuna to take up a matter which would ultimately bring misfortune. So you getting your point? So Prabhupada is saying, Arjuna said Madhava. He is reminding Krishna, Krishna, you're husband of Lakshmi. You're supposed to only bring auspiciousness. you should by no means tell me or encourage me to fight. Otherwise, you will be the cause of inauspiciousness. It's very beautiful how acharyas describe, the meanings. Why? I mean, if Krishna is Krishna, why is called as Madhava? Why is called different names? You can just say call Krishna, but there is a hidden meaning, indication, to be made through that. Text number 37, 38. O Janardhan, although these men, their hearts overtaken by greed, sees no fault in killing one's family or quarreling with friends, why should we, who can see the crime in destroying a family, engage in this acts of sin? And then Prabhupada again argues against this claim. Arjuna is saying this is a crime at my end if I fight and kill my relatives, these warriors. Ultimately, they are my relatives. Why should I destroy a family and engage in this acts of sin? Now imagine if Duryodhan would have become a king, if he would have ruled. First of all, it was Krishna's will. Krishna says, Yada yada hi dharmasya. That's the point. Okay, fine. Okay, let's keep Krishna's will aside for a second. Now, what would have happened if Duryodhan would have become the king? Duryodhan had emptied his treasury. Not only his treasury, the treasury of Yudhishthira Maharaj. Now, one of the concerns of Duryodhan was, what will I return to Pandavas? There is nothing remaining in Indraprastha. he had already exhausted the whole treasury. Just before the exile period ended, he had performed a yajna called as Vaishnava Yajna. So he went out, he met Kripacharya and others. He said, I want to perform a yajna far greater than Rajasuya Yajna. The sages says, well, Rajasuya Yajna itself is the greatest. But the matter of fact is, you cannot perform. He said, okay, I'll perform Rajasuya Yajna. Ashwamedh Yajna, right? Rajasuya Yajna. He said, I will perform Rajasuya Yajna then. And then Kripacharya said, well, you cannot perform Rajasuya Yajna until the time the king who had performed Rajasuya Yajna is living. No other king can perform it again. So Yudhishthira Maharaj was living. So Duryodhan wanted to show off to his kingdom. He wanted to win the hearts of everyone and wanted to show off that how great I am. So he said, no, you have to figure it out. You have to find out some yajna. They did all the research and they found out a yajna. Very interesting name of a yajna. Vaishnava Yajna. And the sages said this yajna has never been done in the past. You would be credited to perform this yajna for the first time. And this is equivalent to Rajasuya Yajna. That much amount of opulence, that much amount of sacrifice, everything would be required. Fine. So Duryodhan was happy, excited. And after that whole thing, the yajna ended. And Duryodhan with the big chest, he's walking. He's thinking the people will say, wow, 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 wow. What a yajna, what a yajna. He was of that notion. The people would praise me. And when Duryodhan walked in the street, you know what people said? Could not even match with the opulence of Yudhishthira Maharaj's yajna. So nonetheless, the point I'm trying to make is Duryodhan had exhausted the treasury of all. So if Duryodhan would have become a king, he was living a life for himself. There could not be Varnashram Dharma. There would not be God consciousness. If Duryodhan was already envious of Krishna, where is the question of God consciousness? Which God would you worship when you're already envious of Krishna? But Arjuna is thinking, no. So here, because of material affection, aham mameti, one aspect, one characteristic that develops is short-sightedness, or you can call as narrow-mindedness, and that is what is being reflected by Arjuna here. He cannot see far distance. What would be the consequences of his action? That's the point. And second point that Prabhupada mentions, the purport is about Kshatriya's dharma. If Kshatriya is challenged for war, he cannot walk away. Kshatriya cannot say no to war, fight. Kshatriya cannot say no to gambling. And here in this case, it was Kauravas who had challenged Pandavas. So Prabhupada says as a Kshatriya dharma, he should not have done. So this is about fear of sins. Reason number 3, let's go forward. And now in text number 39 to 43, it talks about destruction of family traditions. So let's take a look of destructions of family tradition. Text number 39. Kulakshaye pranashyanti kuladharma sanatana dharma naste kulam krishnam dharmo bhi bhavati uta. With the destruction of the dynasty, the eternal family tradition is vanquished, and thus the rest of the family becomes involved in irreligion. Prabhupada writes something very interesting in the purport. There are many ritualistic ceremonies which are performed for the purpose of purification. In the system of Varnashram institution, there are many principles of religious traditions to help members of the family grow properly and attain spiritual values. But who ensures those family traditions are followed? Even look in your life. It is only ensured by our seniors. In our case, our grandparents. They say, "Nahi, beta, this is what has to be done, this is what has to be done." And Arjuna's concern is, if everyone dies, not the current generation, the previous generation is going to die who's standing here on the battlefield, then who would protect our family traditions? Text number 40. Adharma bhi bhavat Krishna pratyushanti kulastriya strishu dushtashu varshneya jayate varna sankaraha. What will happen if we don't have a generation, the generation of seniors to take care? Now, what happened is what we can see, what happened with American Western civilization. As you know from Srila Prabhupada's journey to the West, many Prabhupada disciples also makes a point that the what you call as, what is the word? You can call it as a common, you can say mantra. The mantra of the hippies then was, never trust anyone above 30. That was their mantra. Do not trust anyone above age of 30. And what happened because of that? Look, what is the state of their culture, the whole American society? Every single day there is an act of violence, gunshots. These people who go on educating all the rest of the world how they should follow civil rights, how should follow human rights, what is right, what is wrong, they are not able to take care of gun violence happening in the country. And they are still debating how to control gun violence. I mean, even a kindergarten child can say, stop selling guns. And the moment you bring the point of stop selling guns, they all come down on the street and say, oh, if you stop selling guns, who will protect me? So in America, you are allowed to carry guns on the streets. Just like I can make a point here. My CTO of the company, who happened to be my direct manager when I was working, he and I were having a lunch together, and I was taking a salad, and he was having, as usual, his non-vegetarian diet. And I would always take a stand that let them do what they want to do. Anyways, they're not going to listen to me. There's a difference in the position. He's my manager, and let me do what I have to do and be part of their culture because I have to take care of my professional life. The manager began to talk to me, the CTO of the company. He said, Mayank, why don't you eat plana dikhana? I said, my religious reasons, whatnot, my family traditions. Then I asked him, I said, but why do you eat? I didn't want to be teaching him. I just asked, but why do you eat? He is a person who has written several books. CTO of Juniper Networks. A big shot whose articles were published in Wall Street Journal. Highly acclaimed person. You know what reason he gave me? He said, Mayank, see, if you don't kill animals and eat, you know what's going to happen? I said, I really don't know what's going to happen. You tell me what's going to happen. He said, the population of animals in the forest will increase. I said, Haribol, where are you going? I said, okay, go ahead. He said, the population of the animals in the forest will increase, and because of overpopulation in the forest, these animals will run to the cities. And they'll become a threat to our life. Threat to the life of our family members. They'll attack our houses. So before that situation can happen, therefore we kill and eat them. So he was a long-sighted, far-sighted CTO of the company. And this is not a meat industry. He was part of a technical company. So anyways, long story short, the point I was trying to make here is, if we don't have, just like they said, we don't want any seniors. If we don't have somebody to guide us, then who will protect the traditions? That's the point. And that was a slogan back in the 60s for the Americans. Look, the state of the situation in America. Nobody knows what to do. There's several generations were passed by, nobody pays attention. And that is what the concern of Arjuna, which is all valid. Text number 40, interesting purport. So two things are mentioned mentioned largely about the protection of chastity of a woman. And something very interesting mentioned here. If a woman happens to become polluted, then, first of all, the woman of the family, if the woman becomes polluted for that reason, if she has a relationship with a man other than the husband, That's where the degradation of womanhood and the progeny begins. And the child that is born is called as Varna Sankara, unwanted child. So Prabhupada says good population in human society is a basic principle for peace, prosperity, and spiritual progress. How do you get good population? Prabhupada writes in the 5th line, such population depends on the chastity and faithfulness of its womanhood. Now think about it. Gandhari is said to be one of the chaste women in the creation, a chaste woman in the world, right? So question arises, how such a chaste woman like Gandhari gave birth to Duryodhan? Is it contradictory to this? Such population, what population? Which will bring peace, prosperity, spiritual progress, depends on the chastity and faithfulness of its womanhood. Now, is there any comparison to the chastity and faithfulness of Gandhari? Yes or no? Then how come Gandhari gave birth to a child like Duryodhan who was anti-peace, anti-prosperity, and anti-spiritual life? Yes or no? So this looks like this is wrong. Who would like to elucidate this forum? How come Gandhari gave birth to Duryodhan despite she being the most chaste and faithful woman? So, okay, I don't know whose hands are up. This is for reading or this is for what, but I just saw 2 hands up getting up here of Ramesh Prabhu and then Venu Vadana Prabhu. Okay, Ramesh Prabhu, yes, go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Is it because of that Duryodhana's previous life karmas? That's why he was born. I mean, it's not a chastity of Gandhari. Because.
Okay, well, if we say that, then what is the importance of having chastity and faithfulness of a woman? If a child, the point is when the woman is chaste and faithful, that particular kind of soul is attracted to the womb. So, okay, good attempt.
Okay.
Who else we have? Venu Vadana Prabhu, please.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandat Pranam.
Dandavats.
So here it is a question of, so this is father and mother is there. So if it is an unwanted child, there is no mother and father, they will not care of this child. So you will be having this aggregateness and everything. And as Prabhu said, this Duryodhana is having that qualities because of previous karma. So here, this boy who is unwanted boy is not having any mother and father. So
fine. So I got your point. Your point is again because of his past life. I beg to differ from that. We have many hands up here. Okay. I would say it's good if a host manages this because otherwise they will say the speaker is partial. He's picking some, he's not picking others. So I don't know. Okay, Mother Varsha, your hand is up. Your physical hand is up. So let's see.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, she was very envious. When Yudhishthira was born, that time she was envious.
Thank you.
She really, gave blows to her stomach.
Correct.
That is how the.
Thank you, Mother. Very nice. So what had happened? Gandhari was not envious before, but just because Dhritarashtra could not be the king, Dhritarashtra was really desperate to have a child first, and because Jaisa Sang Vaisa Rang. So Gandhari was also affected a little bit by the association of Dhritarashtra. And Gandhari actually had impregnated way before Kunti had. But for some reason, she was not giving birth. It was way beyond 9 months. And it has become 10 months, 12 months. The child is not coming out. And you can imagine whoever child comes first because the king, so you can imagine, it's just like a relay race. You know, who reaches the land point first. And here suddenly the news comes. Kunti gave child. Kunti gave birth. Kunti gave birth. And Gandhari became so upset. And as Mother Varsha said, she began to hit her womb. And then, the lump of iron fell from her womb and all the acid came. So Acharyas described the reason was because Gandhari in association with Dhritarashtra had developed that envy towards Kunti. And that envy towards Kunti got transferred to the sons of Kunti. That's the reason Duryodhana was born so envious like that. All right. Text number 41. Shankaro narakayeva kulajnanam kulasya cha patanti pitaro hyesham ullupta pindodaka kriyaha. An increase of unwanted population certainly causes hellish life, both for the family and for those who destroy the family tradition. The ancestors of such corrupt families fall down because the performances for offering them food and water are entirely stopped. So, in every verse, he's giving different reasons. And the first verse, he said, family traditions. Next verse, text number 40, gave a reason the woman will become corrupt because of which unwanted progeny. And when you have unwanted progeny, then there is war and famine. And the third, 41st, the reason he gives now, because of unwanted kids, unwanted progeny, they would not follow family traditions. They're already destroyed. There is no more Pitradan. And there is no Pitradan, then our forefathers will also fall down. Can you imagine how much fall down happens when the unwanted progeny is there? There is a fall down happening in the current society. Even forefathers are not spared. That is a point we mentioned here about it. So Prabhupada talks about what is this Pitradan, Pindadan, you want to call it. So Pitralok is a planet, Pitralok, and it's said to be Yamlok. Actually, Yamraji says in Pitralok, there's just both like next to each other, like Sikandrabad, Hyderabad, or Noida, Delhi. I mean, this is what Ramayana mentions. Ravana went there. So when he wanted to go and fight with Yamraj, first he entered in Pitralok and then he entered in Yamlok. What is it called as? Something, whatever is called it. So what is this Pindadan which is being described, and what is this very important family tradition? So the ancestors who have died, first thing, because of their sinful past, they may not have got a body, so they're hovering around in ghost body. Second, they have reached to the Yamaloka, and they have been given punishment in different, hellish planets. Third, they may be even in celestial planets. So all three of them get purified, particularly the first two, one who does not have a body and second who's suffering in hellish planets. When Vishnu Prasad, Pindadan is what you offer to Vishnu, not anyone else. In Kali Yuga, everything is possible. Pindadan is always said to offer bhoga to Vishnu, no other devta. When you offer to, and generally Pindadan is done where? Gaya. Gaya is a place of what? Vishnu, isn't it? So Pindadan. So when you offer bhoga to Vishnu and then you offer, and how do you offer to your Pitras? Through crows, through Brahmanas. There are certain things are mentioned to them. Through them you can. So the food through the crows and the Brahmanas goes to your Pitras. Somebody who does not have a body, because you have offered Krishna Prasadam, they get a body. Those who are suffering in the hellish planets, they get liberated from that hellish condition. And those who may be enjoying in the celestial planet, the, let's say, heavenly planet, they get their nourishment. Just like in 3rd chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna speaks about yajna. There is a mutual dependent, symbiotic relationship which Krishna have designed between the devatas and the jivas of this planet. This is called as Prithvi, Karma Bhumi. So all the sacrifices, tapasya that we do, the fire sacrifices that we do on the names of different gods, that nourishes them. So even if you consider your ancestor has not performed any sin, he has gone on Indraloka or any heavenly planet. So the heavenly planet, one day is equal to 6 months here. So if you see the Pitru Paksha Pindadan that we do, there is a time that comes, duration, that comes at the time when it is the morning time for the Devatas. So when Devatas on the heavenly planet, when they wake up, that is a time, of course not for the Devatas, but that is a time the offering is done, which means that offering nourishes your Pitras. And because they're in a blessed position, they offer blessing and you make progress in your life. And those who were suffering, they get liberated from their suffering. That is how the Pindadan concept functions. Text number 42. Dosherete kulagñanam varna sankara karake ussadyanti jati dharma kula dharma cha shashvatah. By the evil deeds of those who destroy the family tradition and thus give rise to unwanted children, all kinds of community project and family welfare activities are destroyed. This is the fourth reason that he gives. Community projects and family welfare activities, in other words, in essence, varna ashrama dharma gets destroyed. Text number 43. Ussana kuladharmana manusyanam janardana narake niyatam vasu bhavatiti anushruma. O Krishna, mention of the people. I have heard by disciplic succession that those whose family traditions are destroyed dwell in always in hell. Now, this is something very interesting. What is said here? Bhavatiti anushushruma. And Prabhupada makes a point. Anushushruma, Arjuna is not saying, I think like this, I feel like this. Today morning only had a public program. I was speaking to the audience, and they're new public programs, a new audience. So when I asked some question to them, everyone was saying, I think like this, I feel like this. That is never a concept. Here Arjuna says, Anushushruma, my dear Lord, I have heard. This is what I have been taught. I have heard by disciplic succession that whose family tradition are destroyed dwell always in hell. Prabhupada writes the very first time in the purport. Somebody would like to read? Or the Madhav, your hand is up. Please read out the first 2-3 lines of the purport. Text number 43. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. 43, purport?
3 lines of the purport, yes.
Okay, Prabhu. Arjuna bases his argument not on his own personal experience, but on what he has heard from the authorities. That is the way of receiving real knowledge. One cannot reach the real point of actual knowledge without being helped by the right person who is already established in that knowledge.
Thank you. So here, Arjuna, so all the points which are given by Arjuna are valid. It is not that these are not correct. And Arjuna is making a point, this is what I have heard. Let's go back to slide deck. Let's see what we have. So the fourth reason, destruction of family tradition, that is being discussed. And what are those? Elders will be killed, women will be exploited, hellish life of family and society, ancestors neglected, community welfare projects stopped, destroyers resides in hell. Okay. If I can dare to ask this question to all of you, how many of you think this is a condition of present day society? Please raise your hand. Please look at the points here. How many of you think this is what is actually happening in the society today? हाथ खड़ा करो ना फिर. हरे कृष्णा. अरे recording कहाँ से आ रही है? Devotees. Okay, so those who have your cameras on, I'm taking look at you now. You can raise your physical hand like this, thumbs up or thumbs down. Okay, so just to have it. Fine. So this is what is the unfortunate situation of the society today. And destroyer resides in hell. Lord will refute it in 2.45, 2.46. So the point I ask this question to all of you is, Hari Bol, Arjuna's concerns are valid. My dear Lord, war should not happen. If war will happen, this is what's going to happen. But no, Krishna would answer that why Arjuna's claims are wrong. And this is indecision. We'll take it later on. This is next. Next time, or the second chapter. We'll see that later on. Let's go back to the book again. Text number 43 we have read. Now text number 45, 46, 45 and 46. Can anyone read out the translations of all the 3 verses? I would request our Nitai Pran Prabhu, other devotees. Okay, Vaikuntapati Prabhuji, go ahead. I see your hand up.
Yeah. Okay, text 45.
44, 45, 46. All 3 verses.
Hare Krishna. Alas, how strange it is that we are preparing to commit greatly sinful acts. Driven by the desire to enjoy royal happiness, we are on our own kinsmen. Better for me if the sons of Dhritarashtra, weapons in hand, were to kill me unarmed and unresisting on the battlefield. Sanjaya said, Arjuna having thus spoken on the battlefield, its bow and arrows, and sat down on the chariot, his mind overwhelmed with grief.
So let me ask another question to all of you. Please put your hands down. Let's do some exercise. Okay, please hear to my words carefully. How many of you say Arjuna is grief stricken? Now, raise your hands. If you think Arjuna is grief stricken, then give me a thumbs up or raise your hands. Okay. And in case if you're not agreeing, you can give me a thumbs down so I get to see how many of you agree, disagree. Haribol, there is no third option. You pick one option. Be responsive. Either you say this or you say that. Okay, I see many of them. Still, some people are in great thinking right now. क्या चल रहा है जीवन में? ये क्वेश्चन क्यों पूछा गया हमसे? All right. This is totally wrong answer. This is not correct. I'm so sorry to say that. Why? Please, Vaikuntapati Prabhu, please read text number 46 again. Unmute, go ahead. Now, so earlier I asked you to pay attention to what I said. Now I want all of you to pay attention to what Vaikuntapati Prabhu want to read. Text number 46.
Jaya said, Arjuna, having thus spoken on the battlefield, aside his bow and arrows and sat down on his mind overwhelmed with grief.
Hare Krishna. So, who is grief stricken? Arjuna or Arjuna's mind?
His mind. Sorry.
Mind.
So you got the answer now? This is what it means by scrutinizingly studying Bhagavad Gita. And this was the larger part of our first session, where we talked about, if you all remember, Prabhupada in the very first chapter, first purport, in the first line says, the Bhagavad Gita summary is given in Gita Mahatmya. And what is a summary of Bhagavad Gita? We had discussed that. And the conclusion was, scrutinizingly studying Bhagavad Gita is what means surrender to Krishna. And that is how we get protection of Krishna. Is that making sense? That's the point here. So, some few reflections, some more points here. Now think about, again, interesting thing. Nobody until now could threaten Arjuna to give up his Gandiva bow. Yes, you all agree? No external situation could perturb Arjuna to give up his Gandiva bow. But now Arjuna's Gandiva bow is slipping from his shoulder. Because of what? Because of his inner turmoil. And that is why it is so important to protect your inner ecosystem first before you start worrying about others. And this is again a Kali Yuga defect. We are so much concerned about others that we never bother to take care of our own well-being. So people are worrying about strengthening or improving their external situations. Everyone is working hard for that. If this is hot, let me get an AC. If it is too far to walk away, let me get a car, and why not? What so many things. But look, despite changing and bringing all the comforts and convenience and making your external situation as much as comfortable, which is beyond your control nonetheless. Even if you get a car, you will still cry because you cannot do anything about traffic jam. We cannot change external situation. This is another very important instruction of Bhagavad Gita. Focus on improving your internal or inner ecosystem rather than worrying too much about outside environment. Arjuna gave up his Gandiva bow because of his inner turmoil. No warrior in the world could threaten him. So we all need to strengthen ourselves, and that is how the practice of the teachings of Bhagavad Gita makes us. This is what we are supposed to become. So message of Bhagavad Gita does not promise that Arjuna, you hear the message of Bhagavad Gita, you would not have to fight battle of Kurukshetra, I would fight for you. Krishna did not say that. Battle was fought by Arjuna only, but his inner turmoil was settled. Similarly, we have to continue on with life. Karmic reactions would come, situations, untoward, unfavorable situations would come, but we have to continue on dealing with all the ups and downs. Where we have to pay focus, we need to bring in our inner strength. And therefore, when you get into the flight, the air hostess and the steward would say, in case of emergency or exigency, if there is a less of oxygen, the oxygen mass will fall. Please make sure to put the oxygen mask on your neighbor first. And if he or she survives, then you may think on putting on your first. Yes, 100% agree? Nobody agrees. Why? Because she says, put the oxygen mask first to yourself. Because if you survive, then only others can survive. So that's what we need to focus. We cannot compromise our well-being. And that is what Bhagavad Gita instructs or indicates. Another point. Now I'm a little bit, will take a course of discussion towards counseling now. A little bit psychology and counseling here. Now see, very interesting, huh? Arjuna is speaking. Krishna is hearing. How many of us have had a situation where somebody is grief-stricken and comes to us and says, Prabhuji, Mataji, this is that is problem. How many of us have experienced before even the other person completes a statement, we give the solution. Prabhu, your problem is so and so. This is the solution you should follow. How many of you have done that? Or no, let me put it there. How many of you had been on the receiving end, where you went and you shared your problem before even you could express yourself fully? The other person started to give you the solution to your problem. And oftentimes, please understand, when people come to you, most of the time they do not want solutions. They just want an ear who could hear their problems. And somebody comes. So how many of you had been on a receiving end, that you shared something and before? Imagine you go to a doctor, you sit down on the doctor's patient seat, and you smile at the doctor smile at you, and you're smiling, he's smiling, and he's writing something on the notepad. Before the end of your smile, he gives you a prescription. So this is your problem, go and get the medicine. How many of you would feel like beating the doctor? You rascal, you wasted so much of my time. You did not even allow me to tell you what is my problem. You've given my prescription to me. This is joke. Very important thing. This is why for a leader, emphatic listening is one of the foremost quality. Krishna, yadyat acharati shreshtas, who can be a better leader than Krishna? And what Krishna did? There is not even a single verse in first chapter. Therefore, in the first session I said, where is Bhagavad Gita in chapter 1? Bhagavad Gita means the word spoken by Krishna. Krishna has not said anything. So what is Krishna is doing right now? Just like when you go to an Ayurvedic doctor, he will not give you a medicine for a problem. First of all, he would give you a medicine to prepare your stomach to digest the medicine later on. That's what the good Ayurvedic doctors always does. So similarly in counseling and taking care of people, when somebody comes to you, it is very important to hear them. Of course, I'm not going to give a session on emphatic listening. There are certain precautions you have to take. Don't hear so much that you become problem. Okay, so you have to draw your boundaries. But that's the point here. So Arjuna expressed, Krishna heard, and then in second chapter, I guess I should not go in second chapter. There's only 15-20 minutes. I'll give you a little synopsis of second chapter, what happens here. Therefore, in second chapter, when Arjuna surrendered, when Arjuna said, my dear Lord, Shishyasya sadimam tvam prapannam, I accept you as my teacher, then Krishna began to instruct. Because Krishna instructed when Arjuna exhausted himself expressing. Arjuna could hear Krishna's instructions. So for dosage, there is a time. If you give a dosage at the wrong time, will not have the result. So that's the point here. Second point, if great personalities like Arjuna, the best woman, the best, the personality, the excellent character and everything, if he can get bewildered, Kaliyug ke namune pe to kuch kehna hi nahi. What to speak about Kaliyuga candidates, isn't it? So if he can get bewildered and then he can seek out a shelter and work under the guidance, how much crucial it is for us to follow what Srila Prabhupada has given us and not to make if and but into it. And that's another point. So third point that we can see in this, somebody may say, oh, I don't have any crisis in my life right now as Arjuna faced. So what is the application of this Bhagavad Gita for me? Matter of fact is, yes, you may not have that crisis, but the fact is the existential crisis can occur to anyone at any point of time, because not always the problems knock on your door. They generally come uninvited. And when that existential crisis would happen, then how do you respond? As I said before, Bhagavad Gita does not promise us to change your situation. Bhagavad Gita trains you in how to respond. So maybe not, but at least for today, it trains you how to deal with future predicaments, future challenges. And Arjuna, when he became perplexed, he did not waited for long to surrender. For example, in India, if a young man and woman takes to Krishna consciousness, people generally said, "Abhi to naujawan ho, 60 साल के हो जाओ, तब शरणागत होना." So this is a story from Juhu temple. One devotee was sharing that it was almost 10 years, 10, 15 years ago. So one young man had joined Brahmachari ashram and the parents were really upset. Parents went to meet him. They said, "You should come." And the son was saying, "I'm not going to come." They were arguing with each other right in the main, campus of the temple. In the meantime, temple commander, the temple leader came there. And the temple commander leader began to speak to this devotees, this parents, what's going on. The parents said, "We want our son back. He's so young. What is the hurry? He can go back, get married, and later on, when he's old, he can come back and join ashram." Temple president or the leader was very smart. He quickly said and quickly quipped, "No problem. You take your son. You come back and join ashram." Mother became frightened. She said, "Ara Baba, this is dangerous people. Huh? They took my son and they're aiming for my husband also." So anyways, the father, mother left. The boy stayed. I don't know the status of it, if he's in ashram or not. But nonetheless, generally people would say, do it later on. But Arjuna did not wait for surrender. Arjuna immediately decided to surrender. So second chapter begins wherein now Arjuna would surrender himself. So three main subject matters are there to make it very simple. If you want to remember what the second chapter talks about, three main things. First, Arjuna now surrenders to Krishna. Second, when Arjuna surrenders, Krishna gives his first spiritual instruction, and that is, you're not body but soul. And the third, if I'm not body but soul, how does my tomorrow looks different than today? And that is the message of rest of Bhagavad Gita, which is called as practice of Bhakti Yoga, Buddhi Yoga, Karma Yoga, etc. These are the three main subject matters. This chapter 2 can be divided into sections like, first is Gita, 4 sections we can divide. Text number 1 to text number 10, G for Guru. And then from text number 11 to text number 30, we can divide it in identity. The acronym for second chapter is Gita. G for Guru, I for identity, from text number 11 to 30, where the discussion on you're not the body but spirit soul. And then from text number 31 to text number 53 is a discussion on two dharmas, Swadharma and Nitya Dharma. And finally, the last section from text number 54 to text number 72 is on the subject matter of Atmaram, where Arjuna asks, "My dear Lord, how do I recognize somebody who have accomplished the state that you're describing about by the practice of Buddhi Yoga? How does Atmaram walks? How does Atmaram sits? How does he speak, etc., etc.?" This is what is a discussion on the second chapter largely. So we still have a few minutes. Let's go through the quick. I've shared this point with all of you. We do not have time for such kind of group activities because this is an online forum, but the slide deck would be available. If you want to reflect on it, you can reflect later on in your leisure time like that. That's the thing. And I will do this next time recap. I have already shared the subject matter, practical application like this, and this is the acronym. And we'll take a look on this next time. It's almost 2 o'clock. Maybe we can pause here for today. And in case if there are any questions, we'll take it. Because if I start with few verses, we'll not be able to cover the subject matter. So to just summarize what we discussed today, we started reading from first chapter, verse number 21 onwards. The very first concept was, why did Arjuna got into this problem? Observing the army, Sanya Darshan. So the very first thing Krishna wanted to teach us, that if you pay attention, if you think you can learn, you can acquire knowledge by seeing, that is itself a flaw. We see not by eyes, we see through ears. We need to get over it. Why did we also spoke about 4 lessons that we can learn from Pandava's life? Why did Krishna put Pandavas into challenging situations? We spoke about 4 lessons. Second thing, we don't observe, Pashyatan, we don't see through eyes, we see through ears. That's how when Arjuna heard Bhagavad Gita, his conceptions got fixed. His perceptions got changed. And then there was a discussion about, the reasons that Arjuna gave, they all are valid reasons is described in Vedic scriptures. But Prabhupada says bodily consciousness. And we also spoke about, at one purport Prabhupada said pure devotee of Lord, and second purport Prabhupada said is material conception. And the difference in both was, in the previous verse, Arjuna had not given up his Gandiva bow. In the next verse, Gandiva bow is slipping, which indicated now Arjuna is not going to do his duty. And I gave an example when Arjuna cried at the death of Abhimanyu. Prabhupada did not say that is bodily consciousness. Prabhupada said, this is but natural. As a living entities, we have emotions. At the loss of a devotee, who would not cry? So Arjuna is crying today also, but Prabhupada called him as a bodily concept because now he is thinking that I will quit. So no quit. Live your life. We cannot give up at any point of time. Continue to perform your dharma. Dharma is of three kinds: adharma, dharma, and parodharma. That was the first session discussion. And finally, we spoke about the 4 reasons which I mentioned: compassion, enjoyment, destruction of family traditions, and fear of sins. And we gave a little counter argument to all of that, as Prabhupada have described in the purport. And to conclude with, I made a point that nobody could force Arjuna to give up his bow. Arjuna gave up his bow on his own because of inner turmoil. Although we focus a lot on improving the situation of the external environment, we forget to take care of our inner self. Bhagavad Gita focuses on strengthening that inner self. That is the importance of the message of Bhagavad Gita. And last point was on counseling. Arjuna spoke and spoke and spoke, and Krishna heard. Krishna sets a perfect example of emphatic listening. And once Arjuna was exhausted speaking, and then Krishna spoke. And one of the last point was also about who was grief-stricken. Arjuna? No, his mind. I'll speak on this concept in the 2nd chapter onwards, more about it. So what it means, hate the sin, not the sinner, Jesus Christ said. So we should not blame the person. We should look at what is the cause behind it. And it's generally the mind which is responsible. So with that, I'll pause here so that in case if anyone has any comments or clarification, we can address that. So thank you all for joining in today. So we do have some questions. So I'll request our hosts can manage it and they can ask devotees who need to speak. Hare Krishna. Who is managing now? Harina Prabhu, Nitai Pran Prabhu, Mother Medhavani. Who is acting as a host right now?
Prabhu, I'm managing it.
All right. Mother Anshana, please go ahead.
Prabhuji, I just want to know something about this. You have given us the handbook. We got it in our WhatsApp. It is regarding the exam pattern. I just was going through it, and in it there is for unit assessment, there is written somewhere attendance at temple program. It is 50%.
No. That's okay. That is just a booklet. We're not aligning it with all. This is for other program.
Okay.
So you follow what we make an announcement. Okay. So it's a 75% attendance in the online program. All right. We can take these administrative questions separately. You can post a question on the WhatsApp. Otherwise, people will forget what we discussed in the session.
Fine.
We can right now focus on the session. In the end time permits, we can take them then. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, Sunny Prabhu.
Prabhuji, how can we differentiate between that in this chapter Krishna is telling that we should not give up our duty. So how can we practically see that which duty we should not give up? That in our practical life we see that there are some material duties we should give.
So the duty that correct. So Sunny Prabhu's question is what duty we should not give up? What Krishna is emphasizing on, right?
Yes, Prabhu.
So we'll take this discussion when we talk about Swadharma and Nitya Dharma, but largely Krishna is speaking about Nitya Dharma here. Now Nitya Dharma is not so different from your Swadharma also. That is Karma Yoga, 3rd chapter. Yagnathat karmano anyatra lokoyam karma bandhana, 3rd chapter, 9th verse. Krishna says your work becomes yoga when you do it as a service for me. So it depends. For example, first of all, of course, spiritual practice should not be stopped. Now, for that reason, your professional life should also be not stopped. For example, if somebody is a grahastha, has taken a family responsibility, just after 5 years in the marriage, he cannot say, Guru Maharaj, give me sannyas. I have developed that level of renunciation. Abba, you may be developed renunciation. Who will take care of your wife and child? Talk about it, think about it. This is irresponsible behavior, right?
Yes.
So now his work life is not different than his spiritual life because he has taken a responsibility. Arjuna is a Kshatriya here. And Krishna is saying, you perform your Kshatriya duty, as I say, that becomes your Nitya Dharma, spiritual activity. So for us, with our mindset in the beginning, it looks like two different paths. Of course, it is also said by Prabhupada, your material life, spiritual life is like two tracks on which the train has to run, correct? But ultimately, it is one only. We need to come to that stage where we stop seeing the difference between our Swadharma and Nitya Dharma. And that is what Bhagavad Gita teaches. The Karma Yoga makes it Nitya Dharma. Your professional life also becomes part of Nitya Dharma as long as you're using the results of your work in the service of the Lord. Your family life becomes part of spiritual life as long as you're engaging your family into spiritual practice. So as you're able to dovetail everything around you into the spiritual culture and spiritual practice, that becomes part of spiritual culture. That becomes part of Nitya Dharma. Okay? On this duty, of course, there could be many questions, but we'll take it when we speak on duty. I just introduced it, but we'll speak more on second and third chapter.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, Mother.
Prabhuji, the Pindadan that you mentioned, that is a karma kand activity, no?
Yeah, just I'm seeing why devotees are not being we can join them on the spotlight. ये क्या चल रहा है? Okay, just let me fix it. Yes, I will manage that because looks like there's a confusion at the admin side. I'll manage the spotlight. Yes, Mother. So I know who's speaking.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. The Pindadan that you mentioned is a karma kand activity. It is just for our information, right? Prabhuji, you mentioned all that.
So Prabhupada in that purport mentions I believe in that purport elsewhere, the devotees of the Lord did not perform all kind of rituals. But you have to understand what kind of devotees, like Prahlad Maharaj. Okay, so we have to have a little more deeper analysis of it. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself went to Gaya. Of course, Pindadan was an excuse to meet Ishwarapuri. So in another forum, Prabhupada was asked this question. And we had discussed in Act of Devotion also. When Prabhupada was asked this question about social construct, Prabhupada said we should not stop because this is also part of Vedic lifestyle, Vedic culture. And if you suddenly stop, then people around you will say you are being brainwashed. What are you doing? How can you stop your practices and traditions? And what is wrong in Pindadan? You're offering Vishnu Prasad only, na? So these practices should not be stopped, which are part of the Vedic culture. Prabhupada at his time, situation was of an emergency situation where Prabhupada did not allow his disciples even to consult astrology. Now there are devotee astrologers, properly initiated. So how do you express this contradiction? The times change, situation change as our community is becoming more older and growing in maturity. We have a wider audience to take care. Then we have to facilitate these things. If you don't have a devotee astrologers, then when a young man and a woman has to get married, you have to go and consult some outside astrologer. If you don't have devotee doctor in your community, today is the most dangerous thing is to go to a doctor. You don't know how will you come back. So you don't have trustworthy people. If you don't have lawyers, if you don't have people like this, so how would it? So it could be karma kanda, but essential things have to be taken care. None of us here are aspiring for Babaji or Babiji life. So we have to be part of the society. All right, Mother?
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji, you can unmute yourself.
Thank you, Mataji. Yes. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
I have a question from text 40, where we were discussing in the purport that good population depends on the chastity and faithfulness of its womanhood. And then we also discussed the exception of Gandhari. So actually, I missed out what we were trying to make the point here. So is that that it's contradicting statement or?
No. I was making a contradictory statement to reconcile a point. That it is said the chastity and faithfulness of a woman brings in good progeny. So I gave an example which was contradictory to it. Where Gandhari was chaste, one of the most chaste lady. If you read the first canto, Prabhupada writes a whole dedicated 2 pages long purport about Gandhari, describing she's one of the chaste lady. And the power of chastity was that she was able to give cups. So she had that. Chastity was that she could make Duryodhana's body rock solid. So chaste and faithful to her husband. Her husband was blind, so she blindfolded herself. Who could even think of it like that? So I said, even to such a chaste and faithful lady, you had Duryodhana as a son. That is a contradictory situation. How do we reconcile? Then there was a discussion, and why Duryodhana was born envious? Because Gandhari had become envious of Kunti. Why Gandhari became envious of Kunti? Dhritarashtra was really worried. Pandu should not have a son before I, because I could not become a king because I was blind. But I am the eldest one, and if I get the first son, but naturally my son would have the right to the kingdom. And that was bringing an insecurity and in the heart of Dhritarashtra, which affected Gandhari. And then when the news came, Gandhari became really, really disturbed. And all that went into the child's consciousness. And that's how we had Mr. Duryodhan born. Okay.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Shagra Prabhu, you may unmute yourself.
Yes, Kushagra Prabhu. Okay. We can have another devotee till the time. I don't know what's happening here.
Yeah, Srinivasula Prabhu, you can unmute and ask your question.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Thanks for the wonderful lecture.
Hari Bol.
Prabhu, is it always that because of the bad thoughts they have, these sort of people will born, or sometimes it also happens with the will of the Lord? Because we hear like devotees also born to like demons, and demons born to devotees in the past stories we hear. So is it that
it is very clearly mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna does not interfere with the activities of this world. There is no question of Krishna interfering like that. Krishna is busy. When you go to ISKCON temple, you see Krishna is always smiling regardless of our situation. Whatever we do, Krishna is always smiling. How much ever rascaldom we may do, but Krishna will always be smiling. And you think, oh, Krishna is forgiving me. But that's not the way it functions. So no, Krishna's energies do the needful thing. To whom does Krishna get involved? Krishna only get involved, Prabhupada writes in the first verse purport of Nectar of Instruction, Vacho Vegam Manasa Krodha Vegam. There Prabhupada in the purport write, only for the pure devotees of the Lord, Krishna takes control of their life. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took control of the life of Sanatana Goswami, Rupa Goswami, Haridas Thakur, like that. So it doesn't happen like that. Now, we say will of the Lord. Yes, that is correct. Because everything is functioning according to the energies of the Lord. So that way, Krishna is there, ultimately. But again, when you look more deeper into it, Krishna is not involved in the lives of day-to-day affair. It is all happening. We'll read in the 5th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Whatever happens, it all begins with our desires. Yes, there are 3 factors: our desire, then Paramatma's sanction or rejection, and then the fulfillment of that through the Prakriti. Prakriti hi kriyamanani, guna karmani sarvasha, right? But Prakriti gets into action and fulfills our desire, facilitates our desire to be fulfilled when she gets sanction from Paramatma. So Paramatma's role in our life is only to accept and reject, and he is the observer. What is that? 13th chapter, verse number 23. Bharta Bhokta Maha Ishvara. What is the first word? Very beautiful verse. Chapter 13, 23 describes exactly what super soul does. Upadrashta Anumanta Cha Bharta Bhokta Ma Ishvara. Upadrashta Anumanta. Upadrashta, he is the observer. Anumanta, who gives permitter. Who is the permitter? Permission. This is what Paramatma does. So ultimately, it is I who desire. Then only things happen. So we'll read in the 5th chapter. We'll talk about desire management then.
Okay, so the will of the Lord is applicable only to the pure devotees, like where Krishna wants to be there at the time.
See, will of the Lord can be applicable to any one of us, but Lord would not want to interfere in our lives.
Okay.
Okay. Will of the Lord is supreme. can manifest in any life, but Krishna generally does not. But yes, when Krishna or Lord Ram, others descend here, then his pure devotees also descend, because through them, Krishna want to show the world how to prepare yourself to go back to God. Otherwise, why would Krishna has to bring his entourage? If Krishna doesn't want to utilize entourage to teach us a lesson, why would Krishna ask all the Devi Devtas to also appear? Not Krishna needs their support to do anything.
Yeah.
Ultimately, Kamsa was killed by the slap of Krishna only. Not the Sumala, Ityadi dekhe when they bet him by the stick. It was like this. Then all the Gopala friends came and they started beating Kamsa with stick. Nothing. So it's to teach us how the life is going on in this world, how to face it. All right, Prabhu?
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hari
Krishna
Bol.
Mataji, you can unmute yourself.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. In the last 46th verse, as you mentioned that his mind overwhelmed with grief, that his mind was affected. Prabhuji, when in the 13th chapter also, in the 6th and 7th verse, this is being described, it was being explained that our mind, to control our mind, we have to use the mind only, isn't it so? That I have to use my mind to tell myself that don't do this and do this, and differentiate between right and wrong. Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
That's not the function of mind. That's a function of intelligence.
Okay.
Mind does thinking, feeling, and willing. I would encourage you, if you go on Evolve Pune YouTube channel, I've given this whole mind management series based on Bhagavad Gita, where we talk about the interactions of intelligence, mind, and senses, how it all functions. If you search for mind management, you'll find it. There I go into a lot of details based on Bhagavad Gita and 4th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, how these all things function. And for example, we have the aspect of service, physical service. There is an aspect of chanting, and there is an aspect of Shravanam and Swadhyay. These three affects three different segments of our life. Our physical body gets purified by physical service, our mind gets purified by chanting, and our intelligence gets purified by Shravanam. So we need to understand what medicine works where. So that the whole series is there, which we have discussed. If somebody is interested, they can watch that. It's there up on our YouTube channel.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Sarakshi Mataji, glad you could join our Zoom session today. You could ask your question, Mataji. Unmute yourself.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Tanvat Pranam. Prabhuji, my question is that if we see prima facie, not going in depth in the shastras or the knowledge given, but if we see prima facie, we see that the person who are against spirituality are very well blessed by Maya, and they enjoy all the kinds of opulences or the kind of things like they become the king or something, and the person who are spiritual are wandering in the forest and something. Why is this unbalanced, Prabhuji? If you could like tell. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Profound question. Our Bhakti Shastri candidates. Let's pass on this question. Who would like to answer from our Bhakti Shastri batch? Please raise your hands. Why? This is unbearable truth. Those who are practicing spirituality, poor people are struggling for bread and butter in India. Those who are doing all sinful life, they're enjoying their life in America. You get $1,000 without working in America, which is 70,000 rupees. The government pays you. Every beggar gets $1,000 stipend from the government. Prabhupada mentions in one place, in America, even beggar has far much more access for illicit sex, intoxication, gambling than a rich man in India. Prabhupada says like that. So, who would like to answer what Mother asked? Which is a very, very valid question. So, okay. Now, I'll pick up. I'll do that needful thing now.
Okay, sorry.
Because I asked the question here. So, let's begin with Mother Harini. Go ahead, Mother.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. I think this is because of past karma. right? Because if we take the example of Dhritarashtra,
All right.
50
So karma, you are saying karma is responsible for that, right? And those are details. Correct. Fine. Good answer. All right, Mother. Let's hear from Mother Priya. Let's hear from you.
Hare Krishna. Prabhu, there are two things. One thing is the material quantity or material things does not define the happiness of a pure devotee which is engaged in devotional service. And second is, you also mentioned, and we have been hearing that Krishna, like we have discussed the past time about the Kolvecha Sridhar, like how Krishna tests the devotee and put him in a different particular situation to test him. So these are the two things from my side.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Who else we have? Rishikesh Pankaj Prabhu. Not audible.
Audible now?
You have to speak a little loudly. Everything went away now. Okay, you fix your sound, I'll come back to you. Okay, say that. We can hear you a little bit. No, nothing is audible now. Sudhir Prabhu, go ahead.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Krishna gives the facilities to the devotees only till the extent they will be able to handle it. He will not, there might be a chance if the devotees will be given all the benefits, there might be a chance they might leave the Krishna consciousness. That's the reason Krishna gives only.
Hari Bol, huh? So all my hard-working IT professionals, don't do overtime. Ultimately, Krishna gonna decide your bonus and promotion. All right. Okay, Surya Prabhu, let's hear from you. Oh, where did I go? Unmute yourself, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you for the class. I think the point here is we came to this material world to enjoy ourselves, separate from the Krishna. But this world is created for dukkhalaya sasudam.
But why Americans are enjoying? That's the whole point, na? That is, people consider it to be Indra Loka. I remember
they're enjoying,
the first time when I went to visa office. There was a huge line in Delhi US consulate office. And those who got visa, they were coming like, yay, I got it. And those whose visa was not sanctioned, they were coming out crying. Such emotion. Okay. So anything else to that?
Yeah, they're enjoying, but they're becoming servants to the senses, right? It's like they're tied up, like they're locked.
Okay,
but
very nice.
It doesn't seem like they have freedom.
Thank you. Good point. Good point. Mother Kamalika?
Yes, Prabhuji. As much as the difficult is the situation, still if anyone can manage to do devotional service, that's the thing God says. That's an examination, like in how much in difficult situation we are more determined to do the devotional service.
But why only spiritualists have to be in difficulty? The karmis are doing all the sinful activities, they seem to be. I mean, it's a very valid question. When you go and look the opulences of the people in the West, you might wonder what's going on. Mala ghuma raha hu, paycheck bad nahi raha. Nothing is changing for me. Okay, good attempt. Venu Vadan Prabhuji.
So whatever we are doing, this sinful activities, whatever it is there, it will be in the form of seed and fructified and like that. It will be there. So because of his past karmas, he's got this supplements and everything. If we are utilizing the situation for the purpose of devotional service, so the purpose will be solved. Otherwise, because God will give the whatever we have done the service to the Lord, He will give the next life. He will give in the better life and wealthy family, like that. So if we are utilizing that one for the service of the Lord, so it will be good. And whatever it is coming to the devotees, all difficulties, one thing is, it is burning our karmas.
Okay.
And another thing is, it is whatever it is there, he will not, even devotees will not feel that it is difficulties or something like that, because it is attention God has given to them. So you will
Correct.
full concentrate on the Lord. So there is no distraction. So this is my.
Correct. Thank you. Wonderful answer, Prabhuji. Great. So gradually everyone is raising their hand. So time is running out. So if you don't mind, if I can conclude with that, I can share my thoughts onto it. Allow me to give you a small anecdote. I'm not going to answer it straight. I'm going to tell you a small anecdote, and I want you to decode it. If you're not able to decode it, let's connect it next week again, and we'll continue, start our discussion from there. Again, I'll reiterate, where is that who had asked the question? I forgot that only. There was some mother who had asked the question. Where is she? Can she be put up on the screen?
Yeah,
can you
Sarakshi Mataji. Yeah, I'm highlighting her.
add her on the screen. Hare Krishna. So, her question effectively was, why do we see such a kind of a discrepancy where those who are karmis, not following spiritual culture and practice, they seem to be materially progressive? Is that correct, Sarakshi? However, practicing devotees sometimes feel like struggling. And in fact, she said some of them might want to go and wander in the forest. Of course, that's another extreme end of it. And none of us are wandering in the forest. We're wandering in the concrete forest of Pune city or Bombay city for that reason. So not that, that's a different level of renunciation. That will not go to that part right now. So point is simple. India has been largely a spiritual hub, yet it has not been so opulent now as compared to America, where there's all kind of sinful practices. Can we make it this much? That America, large people do not follow, yet they seem to be so progressive. I've lived among them, so I know that about that. What we see is not always the truth. There is a lot of things behind it. As I said, I'm just going to give you a small anecdote for it, or story, but I will leave on to you to figure it out. If not, we'll start next time. Imagine you're traveling in a plane, and there happens to be 3 passengers, and your plane has got into a fire, and the plane would crash. You happen to be the pilot of that plane. And in that plane, there is only one life-saving jacket you can give. You are the pilot, decision making is in your hands, you know where the life jacket is, you decide whom to give. There are 3 people to whom you can give life jacket, choose from. One is a lady, she has a very young child, newly born child in her hand. She's crying and sobbing. You can give the life jacket to her and save her and the child's life. Second option is a doctor who has created a cure for AIDS, who has already created a cure for AIDS, is there in the market, and such a fantastic personality, we can save the lives of 100,000 more people. You can give it to him. And third is a scientist who has made another fantastic, discovery, maybe an electric car, something like that. So, because Sarakshi asked this question, let me ask her. If you are a pilot of such plane, among 3 people, whom would you like to give a life jacket? Say that out. And for those of you who are online, you can say 1 to 3. One is a woman with a young child. You save her, you save the life of a child, you save his future. Second is a doctor who made a cure for AIDS. Third is a scientist who gave you, let's say, an electric car, no more petrol and diesel. Whose life will you save? So first 2, 3, rest of you can type in the chat box. Let's hear from Sarakshi. What would you do?
Prabhuji, I can't figure out.
You have to figure it out. Don't worry about your situation. Pick something. What among the 3 looks best? Don't sound like Arjuna. I don't know if I should fight or not. That is not the situation. Make a decision now.
Prabhuji, I think I'll go with doctor because he has the perspective to save more lives in future.
He's already given the cure for AIDS. Fine. All right. Okay. Got the answer. Now, because looking at the situation, Mother Sarakshi chose for a doctor. Many of you have chose number 1, mother. And poor scientist, nobody's voting for him. सही में गैर गुजरे आज के साइंटिस्ट. Nobody has respect for their life. Okay, jokes apart. So, by the way, I was also a scientist, so I'm kind of making a joke on myself. So, the first and the second, right? Now, imagine you happen to come to know, or you get to know, the lady whose life you saved was actually carrying a bomb, and the destination, which may be, let's say, your city, Delhi, Bombay, Pune, wherever you are, London for that reason. And her plan was to go and plant a bomb in your neighborhood and kill all the kids there. Now, none of you are going to choose number one. Imagine the second doctor, you get to know that that person had created a medicine cure for the AIDS, but that person is working on genetic modification. And he has already created a kind of a virus which can spread, which can become widespread, and it can make a human being crazy. And he has been highly funded to spread this virus around to wipe out half of the world's population. None of you would choose second also. Let me not say anything about third, because poor scientist, nobody voted, so let's not give any situation for him. So just this thing, how many of you think now you're going to change your decision? Raise your hands if you get to know. Therefore, what you see is not always the truth. So, Sarakshi, Sakshi, I'm sorry I missed your name, who had asked a question. So, what you see there, opulence, is not what actually is. There is a lot of things behind it, and there is a lot of things waiting for them in the future. With that, I'll pause here. I see there is one question with the Medhami. We'll take that. What I gave you, not a direct answer. Indirectly, I would like you to decode that. Yes, Madam Medhami, what's your question?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you for the wonderful session. You spoke about Pindadan, right? So I just had a question. Long time I've had this question. It's quite technical, but if you can help me understand this. We do this, we have this Bhishma Panchaka that we celebrate in the last 5 days of Kartik month. And we also know from Bhagavatam that Bhishma actually left his body in the Uttarayan, which happened sometime in January.
This is out of Bhagavad Gita subject. You're asking out of context question.
No, Pindadan was today's subject, so it's related to that.
Pindadan. Yeah. Don't come to me and ask me Bhishma died somewhere else. Why we are saying Bhishma Panchak in Kartik? Okay.
Yeah, that's my question.
So, what it got to do with Pindadan, right? How is Pindadan?
No, Pindadan is you offer to forefathers who have left their body, right? We generally do for our great grandfathers, like my father does for his father.
So
on the day he
Bhishma Panchak is Pindadan.
No, Bhishma Panchak on the last day. At least his own as Jayapataka Maharaj, he does the Pindadan for Bhishma Dev. So I just wanted to understand.
Oh, okay, that way. So that question should be redirected to His Holiness Jayapataka Swami Maharaj. His Holiness Jayapataka Swami Maharaj ki Maharaj, it apparently looks like Bhishma Pitama left in February. Why are you doing Pindadan at the end of Kartik? And when you get the answer, please pass it on to me also.
I get a chance to ask. Definitely,
Hari Bol. Some questions have to be passed on. Okay. We are not jack of all trades. Little bit we know. We are trying to serve with that capacity. So thank you all. This is almost 2:30 now. We're 15 minutes beyond time. This is a miracle for me how people can stay online for 2.5 hours. If as a speaker I go dizzy, I don't know what happens to the audience. You people are beyond this bodily consciousness entirely. To be able to sit for 2.5 hours, that too for an online session. We find difficult to sit for 1 hour. Hari Bol, who muted me? Okay, so I'm happy to be in association of advanced devotees. So I'll also a little bit in their association, getting out of bodily consciousness, because I have to also sit for 2.5 hours. Because you all are there, so I have to also sit. So you're helping me rise up my bodily consciousness. So thank you once again, Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada.